morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you'd all stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
For a motion to approve our county board minutes.
So moved.
Look for a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Tabitha, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Look for a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. We have a lot of proclamations this morning. We have a lot of business. We have a lot on the agenda today. Those that are here for proclamations, I would ask that you stick around because we have to have a photo op with all of you. And we will do all of the proclamations at one time, but then just stick around. So, Ms. Gruber?
We have National Volunteer Week. I guess no other people are here. They're just not willing to stand up with me, apparently. So I'm Gina from the Chamber of Commerce, and I represent the Morrison County Volunteer Network. April is National Volunteer Month, and so our proclamation is whereas the entire community can effectively and positively change with any community action, no matter how big or small. Volunteers can connect with local community service opportunities through hundreds of community service organizations like the Morrison County Volunteer Network, whereas 1,172 volunteers working in Morrison County utilize nearly 100,000 hours of their time and talent to make a real difference in the lives of children, adults, and elderly. Whereas Volunteer Appreciation Week all over the nation serves projects will be performed and volunteers recognized for their commitment and service. Whereas giving oneself to service and another empowers the giver and recipient. Whereas experience teaches us that government by itself cannot solve all of our nation's social problems. And our country volunteer force of over 64.5 million people is a great treasure. And whereas volunteers are vital to our future as a caring and productive nation. Now, therefore, we ask that the Morrison County Commissioners proclaim April 15th through the 21st as National Volunteer Week.
Look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
We discuss this every year, and the volunteers, how important they are. And again, I'm sure we should have a phone number out there where people can call if they need any, because I'm sure you probably would like a few more volunteers out there.
As always, yes.
Yes, so, and again, I just think I appreciate, I'm sure the county does too, as far as well as what you guys do for the community.
Right, thank you.
I'd like to say thank you too.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you also, and I know, there's a lot of places that wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for volunteers. There's a lot of people that volunteer everywhere, and it gives them satisfaction to do that help too, so thank you.
Volunteers truly are the backbone of our community, so thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. So we've got a motion, we've got a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? That motion passes.
Sexual assault awareness.
Good morning.
Morning. Okay. Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas sexual assault is an intolerable, violent crime with public health implications for every person in Morrison County, whether as a victim, survivor, a loved one, or a community member. And whereas the voice of those who have been victims of sexual violence must be heard through public awareness and education activities. And whereas in fiscal year 2017, Hands of Hope Resource Center served 126 new sexual assault victims and their loved ones in Morrison County. And whereas nearly 3 out of 4 adolescents who have been sexually assaulted were victimized by someone they knew well. Whereas no one person, organization, agency, or community can eliminate sexual violence on their own, the Board of Commissioners joins Hands of Hope Resource Center in believing that all Morrison County residents must be part of the solution to eliminate crimes of sexual violence. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Morrison County and the Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim April 2018 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in honor of all Morrison County residents who have made a conscious and dedicated decision to end sexual violence.
Look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
We just would like to say thank you for everything you do. You do a noble job, and we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hands of Hope is an amazing facility that nobody knows about until it's needed. We can talk volunteers until we're blue in the face. We can talk about a lot of things until we're blue in the face, but until you truly need the services that are provided with Hands of Hope, you don't know. So truly, honest to goodness, unsung heroes, everyone is, I got it, but Hands of Hope are, so thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Got a motion, a second. Discussion is taken care of. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
All right, Mr. Chair, and we have the crime victims, and I think we have the same group up to discuss that one.
National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Whereas providing victims with knowledge of their rights and available services further strengthens their ability to recover by restoring a sense of self-empowerment. Whereas victims who feel understood and supported are more likely to disclose their victimization, seek services, and participate in the justice process. Whereas a multidisciplinary response involving collaboration among victim service professionals, criminal justice officials, legal professionals, medical and mental health providers, and community leaders is essential to reach and serve all victims, especially those who are marginalized, have disabilities, or live in remote locations. Whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 8 through 14, 2018, provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that all victims of crime, especially those who are challenging to reach or serve, are afforded their rights and receive a trauma-informed response. Whereas Hands of Hope Resource Center is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our communities and our victim responders, and working for justice for all victims and survivors. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Morrison County and the Board of Commissioners proclaim the week of April 8 through 14, 2018 to be National Crime Victims' Rights Week.
Look for a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd just like to thank you for giving an opportunity to help people that need help. This is a bad situation on both sides when we have these things, and it's good when there's help for people. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Can't say that one any better than Mike did, so thank you very much. Thank you very kindly. Appreciate it. Excuse me. Motion second. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carmen Genske. I'm from Morrison County Public Health. Proclamation for Annual Public Health Week 2018. Whereas the mission of Morrison County Public Health is to enhance the health and well-being of all Morrison County residents and communities by providing quality services that promote healthy behaviors, prevent disease, protect from harm, and assure access to quality health services in collaboration with community partners. And whereas the vision of Morrison County Public Health is to assure that every individual has the opportunity to achieve and maintain an optimal level of health and independence and to lead a vital, productive life. And whereas the Morrison County Board of Commissioners are working toward a community whose citizens reflect physical, emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and whereas the many programs provided by Morrison County Public Health benefit all county residents, whether directly or indirectly, and these programs are essential ingredients of a healthy population. And whereas the Morrison County Public Health Department must continue to reach out to those in our community who seek assistance. And whereas the Morrison County Public Health Department must continue to promote community health and educate residents of the benefits of a healthy lifestyle. And whereas Morrison County Public Health declares to continue to identify local public health priorities and implement activities to address the areas of public health responsibility, which include assuring an adequate local public health infrastructure, promoting healthy communities and healthy behaviors, preventing the spread of communicable diseases, protecting against environmental health hazards, preparing and responding to emergencies, and assuring health services. Therefore, be it resolved that Morrison County and the Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the first full week of April annually as Public Health Week. Thank
Look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Further discussion?
I would just like to say thank you for everything you do. You work to protect individuals from the unborn to the elderly, and you work with other entities within our community to make people's lives better, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'd have said the same thing if he didn't say it first.
Well put. Thank you very, very kindly. Motion second, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, public health does a great job reminding me and us as an employer on making sure that we work with staff to remain healthy and be a good productive workforce. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Always a good reminder during this week. So thanks. Nobody could hear that because my mic wasn't on, so that's okay.
We heard you.
We have Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Therese Meyer, and I am a member of the Morrison County Child Protection Executive Board.
Okay.
Whereas child abuse and neglect continue to be a problem within our society, and whereas April has been declared National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and whereas Minnesota has initiated many efforts to promote child abuse prevention programs within the counties, and whereas Morrison County has promoted such programs and recognizes that children and families are an important part of our society, needing the support and protection of our community. Whereas Morrison County recognizes the dedicated work of the community professionals, neighbors, and extended family that provide assistance to prevent and intervene in the case of child abuse and support to parents. Whereas special thanks is given to Morrison County Child Protection Team and to interagency members of the efforts, funding, and provision of parenting education and support through Circle of Parents, Families Program, Kindness Retreat, educational website, and the child abuse prevention curriculum provided to schools in Morrison County. Whereas Morrison County Child Protection Team recognizes and supports the efforts of parents, extended family, friends, and neighbors of children to provide a safe and loving environment for children. Be it resolved that April is hereby declared Child Abuse Prevention Month in Morrison County.
Thank you. I look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. My turn to go first. There's nothing that is more sacred than a child, and certainly a child that has been abused. For anyone that wants to or has to or ever deals with a child that has been abused, it takes amazingly special people to do that. You know, it's the hope of mine that child abuse would go away and never be seen again. I don't get to make that deal to prevent that, but it's through folks like you that are able to do that and to help children that can't speak for themselves. So I truly thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a motion, a second, discussion, and those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last but not least in our line of proclamations is the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week proclamation.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
So I have Victoria Ingram with me. She's Emergency Manager, Communications Supervisor, and Jane Holman, our lead dispatcher. So I'll go forth with the proclamation. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas Morrison County dispatchers efficiently coordinate emergency services for both man-made and natural disasters to ensure the health and safety of our community. And whereas public safety dispatchers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with the emergency services. And whereas public safety dispatchers are the single vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and first responders by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas, while enduring shift work and frequent emergencies, Morrison County dispatchers continue to perform their duties in a dedicated, diligent, and loyal manner. Now, therefore, we ask the County Commissioners of Morrison County to hereby proclaim the week of April 9th through the 13th, 2018, National Public Safety Telecommunications Week.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to say I listen to you guys on a daily basis, and you're helping out the law enforcement, the firefighters, the EMS, all those individuals, even the state patrol, and can't appreciate you anymore. Thank you.
And I just want to thank, again, we have the Sheriff's Department here, Social Services, the volunteers, Hands of Hope, Public Health, and there's numerous other organizations that the county should be proud of. So again, thank you very much for all you guys do.
I'd like to thank you. And, when I look at you folks, I think of the story that we got to see the other day with this mall stabbing in St. Cloud, and how dispatchers are the ones that really relayed all that information. When you think that somebody could go into a mall at one end, he shot at the other end, stabbed 14 people, and it takes 4 minutes for this all to happen. And these people have to deal with the press. They have to deal with all the communication that goes on between all the agencies that come on board at that time. It's just totally amazing to me how you can even handle that stress and handle that issue. So I thank you very much.
And I kind of know firsthand as to what you folks do, so thank you. Thank you very, very kindly. Appreciate it. So, motion, second, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. And now, Ms. Gruber.
Well, we're going to break for a minute and take pictures with the groups, and we'll go in the order that they were presented. So if you want to come up with the first volunteer group.
How are we doing this?
In front.
Oh. One says public health.
We're National Volunteer Week first, so we're not. I'll give it to you. Just lay it in the chair. Take my coat out, too. Yes. Thanks, Randy. Hey, there's Mittendorf. Next time you go, right? Yeah. That's what you can totally do that. You stand in front of me. I'll just peek over your shoulder. Great. Oh, sorry. I need to make sure that we have. There you go. Oh, stay first. First, I just turn it on. Oh my gosh, I don't think it could be better. I don't. All right, thank you very much. Thank you all very, very much. Everybody didn't sign in. It's lovely weather. That's what. Next time, I'll call you a little awareness and victims. Do you need different people? All right, yeah, I'll have good. Perfectly covering up Randy's face and I I appreciate it.
And by the way, I'm okay with that, so if you want to cover it.
All right, this is good.
Okay. See ya. Thank you. You just don't want to leave. Amanda, why would you want to leave?
Crime victims is together.
Who's that?
Now we're doing public health, right? Public health.
Public health? Oh. You're going to hang around.
Hang around and get to the side.
Morning, Brad.
Morning.
The recruiter, yeah, I'm looking for some people that can break.
Carmen might be in the back. You're going to fall. Good.
I like, there we go.
Yes, thank you very kindly.
Child abuse prevention.
Child abuse prevention.
All right.
Okay, squeeze in.
Mel's behind there.
She's a lot shorter than she's squished.
Ready?
All right. Thank you very kindly. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So much for my.
Oh, yeah.
For anybody who hasn't signed in, make sure before you leave to get everybody's name for the record. Pass you, oh, you're having enough signage sheet? Yep.
Just
Thank you, little.
I know. Don't get my feet.
To start. And now we're back. Our next item on the agenda is Mudfest. So I would like to ask the applicants to sit over here. We've got 3 chairs. Is that enough, Ron?
Ralph.
Okay. Or Ralph? There he is.
Mr. Chair, if I could just
Please.
start. In your board packet, you saw the application in its whole, in its entirety. There are a few things that are different, so I thought I'd just take a minute to point out what's changed from last year to this year, and the applicants certainly then can jump in from there on what it is. So when we took a look at what was in 2017 in comparison to 18, and again, they're large documents that have all of this in that. There's a few things. The number of tickets to be sold is greater this year in terms of what was identified last year. The request for tickets to be sold this year is 5,000. And the total number of people on ground per day would go to 3,600 as the request from last year. There's just a minor, the satellites, including handicap satellites, there's a hand washing station that was included last year as identified, but I guess is maybe it just didn't get printed this year, but it was different anyway from last year to this year. The event only runs during daylight hours. The rest is all primitive camping on number 8. Last year included the event only runs during daylight hours, where this year it doesn't have that. So I don't know if there's a change with how you want to do camping or something like that. So that was a change. And I think that was it for the first document. The letter of agreement for the security specialist, the numbers were increased from last year to this year, and the total increase was 280 additional hours. It looks like that was added for this year in the security specialist contract in comparison to last year. That sounds about right, I would assume. And then a couple of other changes that occurred. was in the safety plan requirement document. The component that talks about beverages on ATVs. Last year it read no beverages of any sort are to be transported by ATVs or mud trucks. And this year it's changed to no visible opened alcoholic beverages to be transported by ATVs or mud trucks. That was a difference. And then also at the end there were a number of components added. The additions were a designated landing zone clearly marked by traffic cones. Roads will be built up and passable so emergency vehicles can drive through at all times to prevent from getting stuck. That was an addition. And another addition is public health rules and regulations will be adhered to so congestion at campsites is avoided. So those three components at the end of the document, the security document, were added this year that were not there last year. And then the per day, again, it's reiterated here, the request is 3,600 people on the grounds per day. So when going through, I just wanted to kind of highlight what's different this year from what was presented last year. And so a number of things changed, and then I would guess, Mr. Chair, that the applicants may want to discuss that further.
I think there was one other item that
did I miss
was
one?
changed, and that was the escorts of the mud trucks. Last year it was front and back when they were being moved, and this year it is escorts in front of trucks between camping and the pit. Last year it was front and back. And I think I'm right anyway from what I went through.
Is that in the safety plan requirements?
That's in the safety plan requirements, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph. And then I would turn it over to the applicants, our friends from Mudfest.
Good evening, morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
To the board. I'm Adam Ripple, Rankin Newland Offices. Been working with Mudfest for a few years. Seen most of you over the course of the last few years. Couple things to point out. First, I did submit a letter on behalf of Mudfest. I understand it's in your board packet there today. I'm not going to rehash all that for you. Couple things that Ms. Gruber brought up. The hours, there's not an intent to change there. It's just, they didn't photocopy the application from last year. As far as the escort, maybe Ralph can speak to this a bit more. They felt that there was no purpose of having a escort in the back. It's just
that's our own reason.
That's our own reason.
We didn't feel that just an extra man hours on the deal. Most of the trucks that go to and from campsites or to the mud pit you're just escorting in front, so if somebody doesn't get run over is the main reason for that. And then that it's really minute to have somebody just following behind. Okay. That's why we just changed to front only.
And then there is some clarification on the breakout of the numbers. Obviously, we had a fairly lengthy discussion in February. The security numbers that are provided are based on the numbers as proposed. Mudfest is doing their best to make accommodations for the county. They've made significant improvements to the site. They make significant expenditures on security and law enforcement. And so this request to have the numbers reduced is really a significant hardship. It's basically eliminating the ability to get any kind of return on investment for all of these improvements that they're making. They're trying to, continually make this more family-friendly event, safer event, taking into consideration all the requests and recommendations that county staff, whether it's the public health through the camping or the sheriff's department through the safety, and they've implemented those. As long as I've been involved, there's just kind of been a ratcheting up of improvements here without really seeing any need to have a reduction in the attendance. We did request some of the police incident reports for the past couple of years. There are really not too many reports. Most of those relate to underage consumption of alcohol. Mudfest does not provide alcohol at the event. They don't sell the alcohol, but they've worked with security to significantly enforce that, turn those individuals over to the county. And so much of those issues are not things that are directly related to anything Mudfest is doing on the grounds. They do, enforce alcohol on the vehicles as well, ensure that any of the folks working in the mud pits are not intoxicated. So we're struggling to understand why there's a need to reduce attendance, particularly when they are proposing significant increase in the private security to accommodate the 3,600 people on site at any given time.
Do you have anything further?
I guess we're open to questions. Just looking to be treated similar to everybody else in the county.
And I think, Brian, if I'm correct, I'd need to open this up for public comment.
At some point we do. The ordinance does provide for public comment, and so at some point during the course of this matter we should do that. If there's no more comments from the applicants, we could certainly do that now.
And that's what I would do. I would open up this part for public comment.
And Mr. Chair, might I add, I think, unless I'm mistaken, there's a general agreement about 99% of the issues that are being presented here. I think the primary unresolved issue is the number of tickets being sold. Mm-hmm. So I think the comments and the discussion should be directed probably to that issue primarily.
I would agree. And I have to ask 3 times.
Yep, and Mr. Chair, the number of tickets sold and the per day attendance, I think, they're kind of hand in hand, but maybe 2 slightly different. Is that
well,
correct?
I mean, you have, with a ticket limitation that's set close to the on-site attendance, that really makes it difficult to have any meaningful spectators coming on the second day, because those are going to get eaten up on the front end. A good chunk of those are camping passes that are sold to people who are going to be there throughout the duration of the event. And so that's really the concern on that. This request for 5,000, they don't intend to have 5,000 on site at any given time. It's just to be able to accommodate multiple days of spectators who are going to come for a few hours during the day, leave, and maybe come back the next day.
So could we, maybe for clarification purposes, how are the tickets sold? Is it you buy a Saturday only spectator pass and then you would buy a Sunday only spectator pass, or is it a spectator pass or a ticket that would be then okay to use every day? Because I think that's maybe a little bit of a confusing portion, at least for me to understand how that number of tickets and then the per day, it gets to your point, I think, Adam.
Sure. I don't know if Jake or Rosie maybe want to weigh in with us.
If you could just step at the podium, please, so that way we would pretty clear. Thank you.
Deb, is your mic working?
Now it is.
That really helps.
Thanks. Yeah, it probably would.
And I would simply ask for who you are, what your address is, and then continue on. But folks, we don't need to beat up the same exact thing. So if you have something new to add during public comment, certainly. But if it's the same repetitious, we don't need to have that. Please.
Okay, my name is Rosemary Wrinkle. I live in 9736 Valley Forge Lane North, Maple Grove, Minnesota. And I usually am the head person up at the front gate. So to answer your questions about how the tickets are sold, usually Friday is a weekend camping pass only. So the people that come through our gates on Friday they can only purchase a weekend pass. No daily passes are usually sold on Fridays. Saturday we can sell camping plus a daily. They are totally 2 different colored wristbands. And we also have the separation of the adult over 21 versus under 21. So we know when we've seen a certain color that person is under 21. And then on Sunday, there is also another for a daily pass. That would be a different color wristband. And by then, all the Saturdays should be gone. You know, they should have left on Saturday. So if those people are found there, then they are asked to either go and purchase another daily, or they're asked to leave.
So it would be kind of a clear color.
Oh, definitely.
So
They're
it's a Saturday,
definitely.
and so I can kind of see the difference between the, I'm just trying to point out that the tickets sold altogether and then the per day limit, there is a process that people buy new tickets come Sunday, and they could have already purchased one on Saturday.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They're totally different.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank
Okay.
you. I just
Very good.
needed
Thank you.
clarification. Thanks.
And again, I'm going to ask 3 times. That was 1. So time number, please.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm Kelvin Beamer. I live at 40653 103rd Street, Hillman, 1 mile south of the Mudfest event. Dealt with the Mudfest event for the entire time it's been there. I appreciate what the Hillman Legion does at the event, is serving food and stuff. The Legion is a great organization. We're not trying to stop this event. We're just trying to control it somewhat. We have dealt with issues of four-wheelers in the past in our fields and the garbage and stuff. And since Sean has come on as sheriff, the situation has changed tremendously. I have a great respect for Sean. They do a good job of patrolling the roads, the nearby roads, much better. So we don't have near the issues. Traffic is still a problem, especially if you're Clyde Capson or Gary Gutwall that live right next to it. And I farm the farm that's right adjacent to the site too. I guess my concern would be, last year there was all kinds of issues going on until then Saturday afternoon when Sean shut down the attendance of it, because there was still traffic lined up 3/4 of a mile out to County Road 33 at that time. Once he shut it down so they weren't taking any new entrants because they were at capacity, the whole environment in the neighborhood completely changed. We didn't have the traffic. We didn't have people running back and forth because they realized if they left the event, they weren't going to get back in, so they stayed there. That's all we're asking this year, is you follow Sean's recommendation for the numbers that he feels safe that he can supervise and have the neighborhood secure. And I guess my opinion is, if you don't follow the sheriff's recommendation, are you and the county liable for any incident that would happen and that we'd have to pay for it as taxpayers? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kelvin. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Is there anyone else that excuse me, Ron?
Yes, I guess now I will remove my hat as a landowner and speak as a prior Legion commander. And with the food situation, I think we probably have someone in the audience here to speak for that. But the Legion has put on the food for a number of years, and as the numbers drop there, it costs us so much money to be able to put on food and everything else, which is direct relationship to the number of people going in. And we have built it up very, very much through volunteers, and you just had a proclamation this morning on that, which we all know we need volunteers. And we probably have in the Legion, I'm saying between 40 and 50 people that volunteer for that. But as the number, we have the coolers, we have the wells, we just put in another $14,000 for gray water, which with the showers there, and that there is no charge for showers or nothing like that when you come into the gate. And what I'm really getting at is, if you get the numbers too low, it's not viable for someone else to come in and do the food service and everything like that. This is the one. And really, what I personally have always tried to do, and that was the beginning of Mudfest, is for young people and anybody or old people, anybody that wants to behave is welcome there. And there's campers there that have $50,000 machines, and they come in there. And we also have the ones with a pup tent and a little bunk in the corner, and they've got 3 kids. I guess the saddest thing that I know of going through the years was a number of years ago, Rosie and I shut the place long before the sheriff got involved as much as today, and I've got no quarrel with the sheriff. But anyway, we shut it down. But when you see campers come through there and you tell them they can't come in, and there's 2 little kids crying there, and they said, well, Mom and Daddy, we were told we could be a camper this weekend, and now we have to be the bad people and tell them they can't come in. When we've got as much land as we need to open, regardless what the numbers are, land is not the issue. We just move the fence back, because there is over 160 acres there, which will cover a lot of people. And I believe you've all seen the photos of that, and it is not very crowded when you go and look at that. So I think you should take that into consideration of the people. And I don't think we've ever had a very massive amount of problems overall. As far as people running in other people's fields, this happens Halloween, it happens at many times of the year. It just doesn't even have to be people that go in Mudfest that run in Mr. Beamer's field, because this goes on year-round. Maybe if he quit planning the road, they wouldn't be driving in it. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time. Anyone want to speak? Oops, we do.
Matt Fancook, 1988, Cable Street, Ogilvie. I own a business where I get to travel around to types of events like this, not just mud truck, but ATV all over the country. One thing that I thought it's very important to point out when the issue with the getting shut down and then the traffic backing up. The one thing that I've learned over the last 15 years of doing events like this, it used to be Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend was a one-event weekend for a lot of families. They planned it. That's what they were going to do. They were going to show up on a Friday, be there all weekend, leave Sunday or Monday and go home. As a vendor and a promoter, I've seen it change drastically over the last 4 or 5 years. Even events that we go as far as, Missouri or Texas, we see a lot of families showing up on Wednesday with their kids or Thursday and leaving Saturday, and they're trying to do, maybe they're going to their cabin for the last 2 days of the holiday. Starting to see a lot of that. So I just wanted to bring that up because the only issue that I saw last year was people not being able to get in. If they can't get in, that creates a big issue. And I don't know that it was necessarily extreme numbers trying to get in. It doesn't take that many people to pile up to close that road down. But I thought it was important to bring that up, that there's people that want to come on Saturday or Sunday, just the same as there's people that are going to come on Thursday and leave Saturday and go home. And it's a lot of it comes down to whether they're bringing their kids there for the day and they don't want to stay for the weekend, or whether they have to work till Friday night and they can't get there till Saturday. So the whole ticket thing becomes an issue that way. If you're going to buy X amount of tickets and you only allow so many people in, I just thought it was important to point that out.
Very good. Thank you very much. Young lady?
Oh, no, he covered it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Yes.
Hello, I'm Lloyd Renkel. I'm at 11004 398th Avenue. Mudfest is literally my backyard, and I'm here primarily as part of the Legion cook staff. Granted, I'm a Renkel. I'm part of Mudfest, but not really much in the management of it. But my main voice I want to put here today is a thank you. I've spent 23 years total in the military. I've traveled all over Minnesota, Camp Ripley, or not Minnesota, Minneapolis down there where I did Naval Reserve. But Mudfest has become synonymous for the state of Minnesota and always good. You go on Facebook, YouTube, look what Mudfest has done for Morrison County's image and the grand scheme of things. People like to do that. The whole reason we started Mudfest way back was people are buying these four-wheelers and side-by-sides. I know you can buy cheaper cars than what most of these four-wheelers cost. And where do you go with it? I mean, honestly, ask yourself, where do you legally drive one? And all these people want is to go use them and play in the mud. And my whole point is also, I should say, I work at the St. Cloud Airport. I talk with a lot of pilots that travel all over the U.S. They know where Mudfest is. They know it's in Morrison County. I think this is a great publicity or public advertisement for Morrison County. And all people want is to have fun. And that's why we're doing it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Martha Foss. I live at 26733 63rd Street, Royalton. I've been going to Mudfest for probably 10 years now. Me and my husband have 3 children. We bring them with as well. We camp all weekend long. In the last probably 6 years, my job has prevented me from going from Friday through Monday. I go to work Friday and Saturday. I come on Saturday evening. If you're closing this down and people aren't able to get in, that means I have to choose between my job and going and spending this time with my family. It's always a little congested in there. There's a lot of people coming in. If we close this down, there are many people who are not going to be able to come in, who are just going to say, well, even if we are going to come on Friday, I don't know that we're going to get in. So let's just not even bother going, which takes away from the fun atmosphere of it. You know, people like to have a good time. It's not a crazy, let's drink all weekend long festival. It's a family-friendly environment. If it wasn't, I wouldn't bring my children to it. I don't think there's a problem with the amount of people coming in. I don't see it as an issue. I would really hope that you would not shut it down so that people are only coming in on a certain day. I think that that would make the congestion even worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And now it's going to be the sheriff's turn. So, thank you.
Will we have an ability to address comments afterwards?
I'm assuming so, yes. Sheriff, Chief, good morning.
Good morning. Can I get a couple minutes just to set up, please?
Sure. Take your time.
I do have some copies that need to be distributed, please. I'm probably got way more than enough, so that's a good thing, right?
Yes, there's 2.
Yeah. After that's distributed over.
It's okay.
Thank you. Step.
But I don't have enough.
All right.
Whenever you're ready, Sheriff.
So basically today, I think the question is, why is the sheriff not allowing more personnel? And if I've been vague in the past about that, today I'm just going to try and paint a picture and give you some factual information as to why I'm at the number where we're at. Just to make it clear, I'm not here to try and shut down Mudfest. I think we've been very reasonable.
You got to turn your switch on, I think.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Much better.
A little louder.
What's that?
Speak a little louder.
Okay, I'll do my best. Okay. So just to make it clear, I'm not here to shut down Mudfest. I'm trying to be reasonable, coming up with numbers. I think we've worked well in the past together. I want to continue that relationship. But I just want to give you like a factual basis as to why I came up with the numbers where I'm at, and why as a sheriff I don't want any additional people. And to do that fairly, I went through a number of incident reports, and I just want to summarize and highlight just a few from 2016 and from 2017 so everybody knows where I'm coming from. And we may disagree at the end of the day, but as the sheriff, of course, I am the one who has to either agree to the safety plan, and if I don't, at least give my reasoning why I don't agree to the safety plan, and that's pretty much why I'm here today. So, I just want to point out too that I want to thank the Legion and the members. I obviously support them, and I support the proceeds that they get from selling their food out there. And I realize all that, but at the end of the day, it all comes down on my shoulders as far as the safety aspect. So I do have a little visual up there. I think we saw this before. This is just kind of an overview of Mudfest. If you continue to scroll down. Maybe one more. And one more. Okay. So anyway, on one of those photos, there was a picture of the cars that were coming in after the gate was secured, and we advised the Mudfest staff that, hey, we can't have any more people coming in. And at that point, there was a conversation, and we were informed, when I say we, law enforcement was informed that, okay, we are at our capacity. We are at 2,600 people. So I know there were some statements made today from some individuals stating that people are not getting in. That's an issue when you have to turn them away. Well, we're the ones who agreed to the 2,600 people, so I don't think it's on law enforcement when we have another mile long of vehicles that are coming in, when both parties knew up front that we're only going to allow 2,600 people in the gate at one time. If we continue on to the next page, when you scroll down, what you'll see is there's a proposed invoice, and I'm going back the last 2 years, 2016 to start. We show 100 hours, and what happened was, if you scroll down to 2017, which would be the next one. Oh, I think you got to go up one, sorry, right there. You'll see that we moved it from 100 hours to 132 hours. And the reasoning we were able to do that is because we put 2 more additional deputies on our staff. The commissioners agreed to 2 full-time deputies. They both start at 4 a.m. And therefore, we were maximized in 2016, but the deputies came in, I believe, June of 2017. So we were able to add to our safety plan, as far as law enforcement goes, 2 additional deputies. So you'll see that's why our hours increased. Staying on that slide, I do have some notes. So in 2017, my note stated last year there were 2 people outside the gate. We were called by security to assist inside the gate. Over half of our 10-hour shifts was spent inside the gate. So what we did is we worked, in 2016, we just worked the perimeter. We didn't have anybody inside the gate unless we were called inside the gate to assist, whether that had meant security saying, hey, we have a complaint, we have a minor, we have this incident, we need you to come in. Well, with working with the Wrinkles, we realized that, you know what, it's probably better if we get some representation of law enforcement mixed with security inside the gate. So we did that starting 2017. And then 2018, if you scroll down, I don't think this was sent to the Wrinkles yet, and the reasoning is just because there hasn't been an agreement. But what I did was I came up with a proposal. In the very bottom, I put this proposed invoice is based on 2,600 people on the grounds. And the invoice for this year, 2018, would be the exact same as last year, 2017. So if you continue on, we met with the Wrinkles. If you scroll down just a little bit, please, so you can see the top of that, or actually the other way, I'm sorry. So it's dated I can't read my writing. So 1/11/2018, I believe we met with the Wrinkles at the Morrison County Sheriff's Office. And the proposal at that point was to add an additional 1,000 people to the 2,600 people who are already on the grounds for the purpose of just spectating. In other words, these additional 1,000 people were not going to be spending the night. They were just going to be spectators to the event. I informed them that I didn't want any additional people, and we're going to get into the reasoning why. So if you scroll down now to the number of hours that was proposed, right, go up one more. Right there. I think it's 954 hours was the proposal if they were going to add an additional 1,000 people. But what happened was I informed them that I wanted to stick to the 2,600 people. I did not want any additional people on Mudfest Campground. So then I received this other proposal, which is coming up. I labeled it as final proposal. And I looked at it and I was okay with it because what they're saying is basically it's 80 hours less than the proposal, but it's actually 200 hours more than the previous year. So even though we had some issues that we're going to get into, I looked at their security plan and said, you know what, if they're going to add 200 more hours, I'm actually okay with this on the grounds that we stick to 2,600 people and not the additional 1,000 people. So that's kind of what I'm trying to show here. So if you scroll down, you'll see the final grand total number was 874, and that was the adjustments the Wrinkles had made based on the information that they knew I wasn't going to allow an additional 1,000 people on the grounds. So moving on, this letter is going to come into effect at some point. I talked to, it's Swore and Gatto. They're a law firm out of St. Paul. I talked to Paul Gatto, who is one of the lawyers, and he informed me that he gave me consent to share with the board some info. They're actually, in this letter, they're requesting, basically their law firm's representing a Jesse Fisher. Fisher was seriously injured at Mudfest on May 28, 2016. And we'll get into that event. It was where a truck drove over a gas can. It sprayed on some people that were around a bonfire. So it sprayed on the fire and it got onto them, and 3 people for sure were seriously injured. So what I did was I broke it down in 2016 and 2017, and I want to share some events because I guess I know what's going on at Mudfest. The Wrinkles know what goes on at Mudfest, but does the board know what's going on at Mudfest? And at the end of the day, some of these issues are serious in nature, and some of them could have been prevented, in my mind, if we had adequate security. Now, I want to address the law enforcement end of things because can we have more deputies show up and be present at the event? Yes, we can. The problem with this whole thing, and I think we've kind of beaten this to death, is Memorial Weekend, it's tough for us. If there was any other weekend that was proposed and it wasn't a holiday weekend, I think we'd have a lot of extra deputies and other agencies would have a lot of extra deputies to assist. But as of right now, I can call any surrounding county, and they're kind of in the same predicament we are. It's a holiday weekend. They basically tell their personnel, you know what, you're working, don't schedule any time off because we need you on the road. And then now to try to get these extra deputies from other agencies on that same holiday weekend, it's tough. So moving on, I did an overview of 2016 ICRs. I'll just go through them real quick. And what I did was just kind of highlighted the ones that kind of caught my attention. The first one, it's a bulletproof. It's May 28, 2016, 18-year-old female located at Mudfest campgrounds, taken to the first aid station. Subject was unconscious but breathing. Ambulance was called. She was transported by North Memorial to Princeton Hospital. She gave a PBT of .066. I'm just going to rattle this because this can take some time, but you guys can certainly question me if you have questions afterwards.
Please, thank you.
Next one, 5/28/2016, received a complaint of an argument taking place between a group of people at Mudfest. This incident was in reference to a cooler that was stolen at a campsite. According to a witness, a suspect pulled out his knife, threatened to use it. The suspect's truck was damaged, dents in the vehicle with a couple tires punctured by a knife. Next one, 5/28/2016. Responded to Mudfest campgrounds for a report of a subject that was badly burned and possibly a camper on fire. Deputies assisted by escorting the subject off the ground so the ambulance could get to him. There were 3 other individuals that were located that had been burned also. The victim stated that there was a black pickup that ran over a gas can which sprayed gasoline onto the fire. A deputy assisted with traffic control while 3 ambulance crews treated the victims. So this one, we did confirm 3 parties were burned. 2 of the parties were second-degree burns. 1 subject had half his body burned to include the subject's face and ear. This subject was severely burned and has already had multiple operations. Victims were ages 24, 19, and 17 at the time of the incident. So I spoke with Paul Gatto from Swore, am I pronouncing that right? Swore and Gatto Law Firm. He confirmed that he represents one of the parties severely burned in this incident. He informed me that they served a lawsuit on the driver of the incident, and he said, I can certainly share this with everybody today, that they're contemplating to amend that lawsuit to include Mudfest. He said, the lawsuit to Mudfest will be for negligence of security. The premise is not being patrolled as it should, and the security not staffed sufficiently. Subject stated that there are hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical bills that are still out there pending. Next incident, 19-year-old male found unresponsive at Mudfest. After deputy arrived on scene, subject became responsive, repeatedly stated that he's going to commit suicide. Female PBT, the results were .224. Subject was transported to St. Gabriel's Hospital for an evaluation. Next incident, 5/28/2016. 27-year-old male passed out under a vehicle. He was located by a deputy. Subject later came to and his brother took custody of him. Next incident, bottom of the page, 22-year-old male yelling at deputies while they were dealing with an intoxicated female. Subject was asked to leave multiple times and refused to leave. After subject was handcuffed, he then became cooperative and was mailed to citation versus arrested and released back to his campsite. This gentleman was on probation for arson and burglary at the time of the incident. Next incident, 5/29/2016. 20-year-old female was found passed out on the ground with beer cans laying around her. When she woke up, she PBT'd at 212. She was mailed to citation. Last incident in 2016, deputy received information that females were topless and dancing on a makeshift stage. Reporting parties stated they believe one of the females was only 16 years old. Deputy spoke to another group of people at the campsite, and they concurred. Case was turned over to investigations where there was insufficient evidence to charge out the case. So basically in 2016, there was 34 incidents. I think they were all fairly serious. I'm just highlighting some of them. Next incident, this is a Mudfest report. Is Randy Beeler here? Probably not. He's from security specialist. This is his report. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down and read some of the things that he states, probably starting with the second to the last paragraph where it says security staff stayed busy. You're right. You were right up. Go again. Up, kind of right there in the bottom. So I'll just read what he put in his report. Security staff stayed busy throughout the weekend. We documented approximately 130 interactions with patrons for various reasons. We stopped people for driving too fast, having too many people on ATVs, drinking a beverage of any sort while operating an ATV. One of the issues we spent a lot of time this year was stopping people for tearing up the property. With the amount of rain that we received, it turned the campgrounds into a mud pit, but we put it to a stop immediately. The patrons decided it would be fun to not keep the mudding to the pits, mud pits. Even one of the Morrison County deputies got stuck in the campgrounds as he was patrolling. If we scroll down to that second page, the third paragraph where it says one battle that we continue, I'll read that to you. One battle that we continue to deal with is lack of phone service. Many cell phones do not work on the grounds at Mudfest. There is a landline that is monitored by security, EMTs, and merchandise booth. But we still missed a few calls if everyone was busy at the same time and was not next to the phone. This happened Saturday when Sheriff Larson tried calling Randy Beeler's cell phone and only got his voicemail because of no service. When Randy received the message, he called Sheriff Larson back, and Sheriff Larson wanted to count on the number of people on the campgrounds. Basically, it goes on to say Ralph Frankel was also in contact with Sheriff Larson, which I did not have contact with him on that day. So that's just an overview of that letter. And if we scroll down to the next page, this is it's dated 5/26/2017, and it's right there. So what this is I think it said 130 interactions. So when I went through this, I just highlighted a couple. On the very first one, it's dated 5/26/2017, 11:25 a.m. It states, I want to say it's Ford Trax Honda 125. It says minor drinking, and then the outcome is minor consumption. And that was written by security staff Lisa, and that gives a name. And then it says strong warning, pulled wheeler band. So what I did was I entered this person into our records management system thinking, okay, I'm going to find something out. He's underage. He's got a minor consumption. He was drinking, but we have no record of him whatsoever. The minor consumptions continue. I highlight a few. Instead of going through everything, I just wanted to bring that up to you. There's one here. At 2:35 p.m., there's a Polaris 611, T as in Tom, D as in David. It says rolled wheeler. We'll talk about that one a little bit. Apparently, there was a ATV that rolled, and there was a subject that was hurt, and our office wasn't notified. Can't find that report either, that was turned over to our staff. So actually, we'll jump right to that one. This is just all the events, and here's the thing. I think the staff and security does a good job. There's no doubt about it. I think Mudfest does a good job. I just think when you get too many people and you don't have enough people to keep order, bad things happen. And that's kind of what I'm trying to show here. This is a security specialist report. It basically says that they received a radio call at 14:30 of an ATV rollover. It says name unknown, observed lying on the back of road. Reporting pain. I want to say that's right hip and shoulder. Instruct to remain still. Randy Beeler had medics respond. Then scrolling down, it says medics arrived approximately 14:33. I'm assuming that that's the medics that are on scene that are stationed at the first aid station at Mudfest. They ended up catching up to the driver. They got the driver's name listed. It states she reports driving too fast down by the pass, hit some loose gravel, lost control, rolled wheeler. And then you got the security personnel escorting the party back to the camp. Situation cleared 14:36. This whole thing happened in 6 minutes. It was cleared. In our line of work, if there's a vehicle accident, if there's an ATV accident and someone's injured, it's mandatory that we either contact the state or an ATV. In this case, the report would need to go to the DNR. That never happened. So, scrolling down, 2017 events. First one's 5/26/2017. 20-year-old suicidal female attempted taking pills. Subject was transferred by North Ambulance to Onemia Hospital. Next event, 5/27/2017. 21-year-old female, subject extremely intoxicated, verbally aggressive, threatening people that he was going to pull out a knife. Deputies made contact with the subject. He became belligerent. Family agreed to care for the subject. Subject was advised that if the behavior continued, he'd be transported to detox. Next report, 5/27/2017. Report of a needle found outside the bathroom at Mudfest. Needle turned over to EMT on scene. 10 cc's of suspected heroin located in needle. No suspects. Next report, 5/27/2017. Morrison County squad car damaged. The driver's side rear door had a rub mark. I put on there unknown if this was from an ATV or vehicle. Squad was parked at the time. Next report, 5/28/2017, ICR ending in 4304. 27-year-old subject was mailed citation for 5th-degree assault. Victim had swollen eye and bruised face. It was from a fight that occurred at Mudfest. Next event, 5/28/2017, ICR ending in 4305. A 21-year-old subject found laying on the ground by event staff. Subject was on probation and he PBT'd a .216. Subject was turned over to family. And I remind you, on some of these instances, we're calling detox, and detox is full. It's Memorial Weekend. Sometimes they don't have any beds available. The last one, 5/28/2017, ICR ended in 4307. 22-year-old male subject was warned for driving conduct. He was spinning around in the mud with his pickup truck. So our staff advised him he needed to turn his keys over to his friend, which he agreed to. 15 minutes later, subject drove over a tent with two individuals present inside. Both parties were luckily unharmed, but subject was arrested for DUI. Next one, 5/28/2017, ICR 4329. 26-year-old male arrested for domestic assault and brought to the Morrison County Jail. Victim had marks on her neck from the suspect choking her inside their capper. Victim stated that she was having problems breathing and she was dragged by the back of her hair and was thrown from the camper. Suspect was charged with felony strangulation and domestic assault charges. Next incident, 5/30/2017, ICR ending in 4383. Report of 3 portable toilets on fire at Mudfest. The reporting party stated that he saw 10 people around the portable toilets when the incident occurred. The reporting party does not know who started the fire or who any of the people were who were standing around the portable toilet. So in 2017, we only had 25 incidents, but I'm just giving you a handful here. And it's true, some of them may not be directly, could be a neighbor complaining of loud music or something else. I didn't highlight any of those, I just thought I'd bring some of these out to your attention. So I guess just to wrap things up, I just had some notes I want to make sure I talk about. So there is a comparison there's a comparison of Mudfest to Freedom Fest from Mr. Ripple. To me, folks, there's no comparison. This is, Freedom Fest, yes, they have a large amount of people, but you're not allowed to bring in your own alcohol. And when you have a combination of vehicles and mud trucks and alcohol all thrown together in the same area, that fact alone makes this event inherently dangerous. So what I'm getting at is if we had adequate staff and we were present and able to get some order, I think a lot of these incidents would probably go away. So I guess we have to go off the past of what happened. And I remember hearing the board multiple times saying, you know what, if you guys are able to, if Mudfest is able to get through this event and there's no major concerns or issues, then we will grant your next license next year. I don't see that happening. And that's why I'm trying to show some reason. I'm trying to show you why I'm at where I'm at with my numbers. It's not because I dislike Mudfest or security, because that's false. I actually do like them. It's just I have to show you some reason, and when the safety plan falls on my shoulders, I don't want to set the county up for a lawsuit. And if we have more people, even if we utilize more land and more space and more area, we still have to cover that area as well. And I don't see anything good coming out of that. Like I stated earlier, I'm reasoning with them. I'm saying, okay, you can have exactly what you got last year. The only thing is I want you to have a few more security personnel present, and they already submitted a plan that would cover that. They don't have, that plan doesn't cover the additional 1,000 people. So that's where I'm at, unless there's any questions for me.
Sheriff, I would ask if you brought anyone else that you wanted to comment on this, or if there was anyone in the audience that wanted to make comment.
If you want to address the scheduling in the past, how we've...
Yeah, so I'm Jason Worley. I'm the Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Office. I handle all the scheduling for our deputies and for special events as like Mudfest. Like Sean said, in 2015 and 16, you know, we kind of kept it as is outside the gates, but then we upped it. And starting in 2017 is the most we have ever staffed Mudfest, and since it's been going on. That's the most deputies we've ever had there, and security. And like Sean said, I mean, even staffing it as much as we did, we used Mille Lacs one year. It just didn't work out very well. And like I said, being on a holiday weekend, I don't allow our guys to take off on Memorial Weekend. It's been that way since we took over, and we still struggle to get the manpower to work it. So they're just not there when they're off. I mean, besides mandatory overtime on a holiday, that's about the only way. So that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Anyone else that wants to comment? Yes, ma'am.
You want me to go up there?
Sure, please.
My name's Christine Cassens, 2576 244th Avenue, St. Francis. I've attended Mudfest for over 20 years. And yes, the numbers have grown when you have gone there. But as the years have gone on, they've put those changes in place to make it a better place for your community as well as for the people. It is a safer place. They've increased security staff. They've increased the Mudfest staff. They've had tons of volunteers. You guys are talking about this week's volunteer week. There's probably 90% of us here that are volunteers that work to help, whether it be security, you know, doing things around the grounds, whatever we need to do to make the place better. As far as number-wise, when you guys are talking about increasing numbers and how you don't prefer to do that, I can give you an example personally from security specialists. They work WeFest, which is over 10,000 people. They are only required to staff one staff member per 400 people. If you break down the numbers for Mudfest, security specialist is 18. That doesn't include the 200 that are working for Mudfest alone. So if you take those 18 people and divide that down by 3,600, that's 200 people per staff, just for security special alone. That doesn't include Mudfest staff as well. So when you break that number down even further, you can see what the numbers are. I mean, when it's one person controlling 100, that's nothing. You know, and as far as incidents reports and those type of things over the last 2 years, things are going to happen. You go to a public event, people are drinking, people are doing all sorts of things. But Mudfest security specialists, even the sheriffs, they can't control what decisions those people choose to make. For the guy with the gas can incident, you know, somebody can't be babysitting that person going, oh, you shouldn't drive that vehicle because there's a gas can there. I mean, people have to have common sense at some point, and you can't control their thoughts and what they're going to do. So I guess the main thing when you look at increasing the numbers is put that math together as far as what security specialist is providing, what Mudfest is providing for a total number of people to work as well, and put that number together. You know, WeFest is 10 times bigger than Mudfest, and what they're requesting is nothing compared to WeFest. So if they're adequate to control WeFest with even less people, I think it kind of gives you an idea. So,
thank you. Anyone else? Councilor.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, appreciate the opportunity to have some additional comments. First, there are a couple of the incidents in the stuff that was shared today that was not provided to us under our data practice request that we paid for, and I'm not sure where the disconnect is there. Some frustration with pointing to the security specialist log. That was implemented in response to complaints that security specialist wasn't doing anything, and so they started to log all of that. And it does demonstrate that they really have zero tolerance for risky behavior, the minor consumption stuff. They're making every effort to preserve a safe event here, providing referrals to the law enforcement when appropriate. The Wrinkles have shared with me some of the past practices in terms of age cutoffs, where folks were directed to turn minors over to law enforcement or not. I don't want to get into that, but that's part of some of these disconnects in terms of the security log and the law enforcement ICR reports. You know, it feels a bit like being torpedoed here, particularly with the sharing of this letter for an attorney who is suing Mudfest. Clearly that person does not have a neutral position. That's clearly an effort to strong arm and intimidate Mudfest into rolling over under some sort of negotiated settlement here, and I really don't think that's appropriate consideration in front of the board.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else with anything new? Anyone else? Sheriff?
I can wait.
Well, it's okay if we address, I have a question for the sheriff.
I think that you certainly can.
Yes. When you say increased staff.
Randy, your mic.
There we go. When you say increased staff, are you talking about security specialists? I got a couple questions. Or are you talking about the sheriff's department?
So as it stands now, if you remember when we went through the securities plan, their enforcement efforts, they had a proposal for the extra additional 1,000 people just to show up for spectating. But when they found out I was against allowing additional people, they gave me another security plan. And that one was less than the proposed one, but it was more than last year. So I guess as it stands now, I'm okay with the one they proposed for the 2,600 people on the grounds at one time, because they're showing in an effort that they're putting more people on the site. And if I didn't think it was orderly or somewhat out of control last year, they're addressing that issue by putting more people on the grounds. So when I say more, they would address that if they just implement that security plan that was provided to me for the 2,600 people.
And then another question I have is when you state or in the incident report, it states DWI. Can you kind of tell me what happens if you, as a deputy sheriff or a chief or a sheriff, when you have so many sheriffs in the area, what happens to that person if you have to give a DWI? Does that, you just give them a ticket and you go on, or does the sheriff have to do something, or the deputy sheriff?
Sure. So right now for a DWI, if someone's driving and we can prove that they were driving and we believe that they're under the influence of alcohol.
And I'm going to, any incident, whether it's that for DWI or minor consumption, could you please explain that?
They're both kind of different. So I'll start with the DWI. If we get somebody who's actually, we can prove is behind the wheel, and we have reason to believe that they're under the influence over the legal limit, we'll do a series of field sobriety tests. And that's out in the field. You know, we walk them through the walk and turn, stand on one leg, all that good stuff. And then at the end of the day, if they fail those tests out in the field, if we have a PBT present, we'll utilize that. That's a preliminary breath test. And based on our field sobriety tests as well as the PBT, we'll look at that and determine whether or not they need to go to jail. Once we go to jail and they're being charged for DWI, they have to take an intoxilizer test through the state. And that intoxilizer test is the true accurate record that we have to go off of as far as whether or not they're going to be charged with the DWI. So we have enough to take them from the scene to the jail, but at the end of the day, they blow into a toxilizer. What's it called again? They blow into the toxilizer.
But you're taking a deputy sheriff has to leave then, that of maybe if they were supposed to be on call there, then they have to leave the area and go into the City of Little Falls.
So if they're part of that safety plan and they're part of the number of personnel of deputies that we expect to be on the grounds for enforcement purposes, now we take them out of the equation because they're driving back to the Morrison County Sheriff's Office where that intoxilizer machine is. So you can take them out of the equation for a 45-minute drive, 30, 45 minutes. They have to process the suspect going through these series of tests and the intoxilizer. And then, of course, there has to be a report that's done prior to the end of the shift, which could be anywhere from another half an hour to an hour, and then drive back to the scene, to Mudfest, to be part of that security plan that was agreed upon. As far as the minors, if they're 17 years old or younger, a couple things happen. Either one, we're going to detain them, and they're going to stay with the deputy until a parent can show up and take custody of them. The other option is we would transport them to the sheriff's office, and they would wait at the sheriff's office until someone responsible, a parent and adult, would pick them up. If they're 18 and older, they would just be given a citation, and they would be released back on the scene as long as they obviously weren't driving.
But the security specialists, they can't issue any of these. It has to be done by a deputy sheriff or someone, correct?
Correct. There was one case I mentioned earlier. It was the ATV log. And again, I think they do a great job. They're showing how busy they are. They're showing they had 130 interactions. But one of the showings is that, hey, we had a minor consumption, but that wasn't turned over to our staff. So now there's somebody driving on an ATV who's obviously underage, and they weren't cited. And when Mr. Ripple was talking about, well, there's a disconnect between law enforcement and security, there's no disconnect. The expectations are set on the 2018 safety plan that there is a zero tolerance for minors, or for anybody actually 20 years old or younger, that they'll be turned over to law enforcement. So I guess I would disagree with them on that statement as well.
Thank you.
Anything further? Excuse me, Ralph?
This is kind of put to the sheriff. Does Mudfest hire a car to drive for transporting people from the Mudfest grounds to the county jail or sheriff's office?
Yes, we put on one transport officer.
Okay, do we also hire extra dispatcher for this?
We do, correct.
We do, okay, I just want that put in record.
Yeah.
Anything further? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sandra Holman. My address is 17541 370th Avenue, Hillman. My question, Sean, is you kind of flew by the comparison that somebody gave you of the Freedom Fest to the Mud Fest. And I feel like that's kind of unfair even to us residents out there, because that's a question all of us are asking. Why are you pinpointing the Mud Fest and not necessarily the Freedom Fest? So I'm looking through what you have given us here. A lot of this is risky behavior that I think you would also find at the Freedom Fest. You have underage drinkers, you have people taking supposedly heroin, suicidal people. I don't think that this is exclusive to the Mud Fest. And I think for fairness, probably you should review the comparison that was given to you for the Freedom Fest compared to the Mud Fest.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could address that?
Yes.
So I did do that. I looked at Freedom Fest in 2017. There was actually 6 incidents that we were responded to. And this, again, is maximum number of tickets to be sold is 5,000. This is a one-day event. Out of the 6 incidents, 1 of them was a vehicle unlock, and 2 of the incidents involved the same person. So that kind of gives you a comparison. Now, as far as comparing Freedom Fest, We Fest, or anything like that to Mud Fest, I really can't. I think we have to use apples to apples, because we're not talking about mud trucks and ATVs and being allowed to bring alcohol into the event at any of these other events. So I apologize, I can't really do a apples to apples comparison, but I can tell you there's nothing really to compare it to. So I think I mentioned it before, the comparison to Freedom Fest is it's not compelling due to the presence of the large amounts of alcohol, the mud trucks, and the ATVs that are allowed at the event, where none of these other events have that. Now, if we want to get rid of the ATVs and just look at mud trucks, I'm all about putting more numbers on the board. But we've had this conversation over the years, and I think it's fair to say the Wrinkles want to keep the ATVs and the mud trucks there. So,
thank you. Anything further? Ron.
Yes, sir. I just have one question, being we have a county attorney here and a sheriff. My wife and I are the owners of this land. And is there anything we can legally do if we catch someone that's underage drinking on our property?
I would recommend that you turn them over to us.
That's it. We would turn them over to you. But otherwise, legally, we cannot press charges. We can't do nothing on private property, even if the land is leased to Mudfest from us.
Normally what happens is if we get notified, we're the ones that have to basically collect all the evidence and make sure that we have a solid case to charge that person, which means without the technology and tools that law enforcement has, I don't know how you'd be able to charge someone, because you have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that person was drinking. Unless, Mr. Counsel, you want to...
Well, correct. A private party can't file criminal charges.
Even as a landowner?
Even as a landowner, only law enforcement can issue citations.
And are you saying we're off the hook then?
No, I'm just saying you can't.
We can't do it. I don't want to be an ass. I'm really curious of this whole thing, and I think that all of us are in this room here. And I was really surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised because I've seen everything that was put on the board here. But what I didn't hear, all I hear is a proposal for some more people or something. But we've gone through this for roughly 20 years, and we used to have a lot of foot soldiers, and now it seems like most of our enforcement, besides our security people, are in vehicles. Is it possible, if we put more deputies on the ground. I don't want to get on the list with the deputies either, but this person-to-person contact seems to make a lot of help. Visibility makes a big difference. When I used to walk through the campground and say hello or whatever, it seems things could quiet down then for a while, and I just identified myself as a landowner. But if there's more visibility on grounds by deputies, would this help or not?
I think it would help. The issue is the number of people on this Memorial Weekend that we're able to get a hold of. But then the other thing is we got to think about the neighbors. Part of the neighbors' request was, have us present, have us visible, patrol the outskirts of Mudfest, and by doing that, we can eliminate some of the, damage to property of the fields and kind of keeping people in that controlled setting at Mudfest versus wandering off and running their ATVs down the road. And as you may have heard before, I think Calvin said it best. I think the issues have been a lot better over the past few years just because we do have a presence outside the gate. So I guess to answer your question, we'd have to take people from the outside the gate, put them inside the gate, and then we're going to be lacking on the outside perimeter, which I don't think we're going to resolve anything. We're still going to have issues.
Okay, I just see a lot of times, I think we have pictures of two deputy cars sitting at a private place, and that's just to kind of keep peace with these people. I'm just being open. Peace with these people, and we're end up. So, thank you. This is much. I just, we used to have deputies that came in from other counties, not that they were any better than these, but I think they are available, but it is. So, thank you all much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ron. Anything further? We're just about out of people, but go ahead.
I'm Andrea Roloffs, 12150 Gopher Street, Becker, Minnesota. I just have a couple questions. This is your you were involved with these incidents, right?
That's our deputies responding, correct.
Okay. I'm just a little concerned as saying you want to put more deputies in there and all this stuff, but you have it written right here, subject turned over to family, subject turned over to brother, and they're blowing well over the limit. Why are you not taking responsibility for them?
Great question, and thanks for asking that. The reason for that is, number one, we don't have the personnel to haul somebody to jail and or detox all the time.
But you do have a transportation that Mudfest provides for the transportation and the dispatching.
So as you could see, as we went through some of these incidents, there were people going to jail for DWI. There was a person going to detox. You can't have multiple transports going on at one time. We have one person designated for transporting.
Maybe you have more that you didn't show us, like you said, but from what I can see is you definitely should have had, and these are probably not at all at the same time of the night, you could have had it worked out where these people are over the limit, they should be going to jail, no matter what event is going on. Because, college events, anything not specifically in the county, or Howie's not in the county, all these events are different rules. Pierce Freedom Fest, you say you only have 6 incidents, but that's only that you guys are called upon, not that are like thefts or break-ins or people driving drunk that you didn't catch, or people actually bringing in, alcohol, minors getting past alcohol from adults. It's things that you guys can't see but other people see, so you can't just blame Mudfest for these incidents.
Thinking that we need relevance.
I'm done.
I'm not blaming Mudfest for anything, but to answer one more question, if somebody's intoxicated and they're 21 years old and they blow a .15, there's no jail offense unless they're behind the wheel driving. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to take someone to jail unless they're actually operating a vehicle or something like that. So
I'm going to ask again if anybody has anything new to add. Once, twice, 3 times, and that's all the comment from the public, period.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Chief. Yes, Mayor.
I have on the screen the recommendations for conditions that we've had in the past. So now it's incumbent upon the board to take all the information that was presented to them, the application from the Wrinkles, which I think clarification needs to be identified in terms of what security plan we're working on off of, and maybe Adam or Mr. Ripple can help a little bit with that in terms of there was a revised plan that was presented to Sheriff Larson, and the original security plan that was submitted with the application was the one that we started with, and that's in the packet right now. And so I guess that clarification needs to be made, correct?
I think so. We need to know which one we're working off of, and if a variance will be needed if we go over the numbers recommended by the sheriff.
And I believe Sheriff Larson's recommendation comes with that revised security plan that was presented in the material that you had, not the original that's in the packet right now.
Let me take a look at what.
Could you put that on the screen? The one that would be the best way.
Yeah.
That.
So in
the 874.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a higher number what's presented, but I just want to make sure that that's what, you know, kind of where we're at and where we fall. I think that's just a point that for clarification.
So the one I was looking at is, it would be the Wrinkles plan or security specialist, 874 total grant hours.
Yeah, so it's a reduction. This is more, so that's okay. The recommendation was to, or not the recommendation, but the submission of the application is for a higher number with this security plan. I think based upon the planning session discussion that we had and the information that Sheriff Larson had after working with the Wrinkles, it was a reduced security specialist number, but in your recommendation would come with that cap that was presented last year for the number of people on grounds and the number of tickets. So they're kind of, does that make sense? I just wanted to clarify that they're two different things that we're talking about. Does that make sense, Adam?
I mean, that is what they're proposing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, their application as proposed.
Yep. Okay.
If we're talking about a lower admission number, I think they're going to object to the security numbers as proposed.
Okay, sounds good. Just wanted to clarify that.
All right, so the board needs to make a decision now. That under our ordinance, the decision to grant or deny the license shall be based upon the application for the license and any attachments, oral testimony that we heard today, or any other written documentation, if any, presented to the board by the applicant or interested person. So
and
that's
Ms. Gruber, was there any documentation? Do you have any letters that were sent or anything like that? Okay.
I haven't received any. I don't know if anybody else has, but I have not.
So, go ahead, Brian.
Again, it sounds like there's general agreement about the license being issued, the primary issue being the number of persons that can attend the event, and under our ordinance, it's the county board that makes that decision and may impose restrictions on the maximum number of persons which will be assembled if such restrictions are deemed necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the persons in attendance and in the community. So the board makes the decision. Now
gentlemen, discussion.
Let's go ahead first.
Fire away.
Okay, anyway, over on the comments out there, Mr. Chair. I was out there last year. I believe someone in the audience, Claude, I believe, mentioned about the road cars being backed up to County Road 33. I was there when that happened, and I don't know really what the answer is, but as there's a couple people in the audience stated that people are coming and going on Saturday. The people in the campground are leaving, and I know I by this it was brought up too, and I'm gonna be all over the map here probably, but anyway, about what the security does. I think the security does a great job, and I appreciate the logs that they have. I think that's important to have, and again, I think they do a really good job. I don't use the word concern too often, but I am concerned about the traffic coming in and out of Mudfest. Again, we talk about Wee Fest, we talk about Freedom Fest. There's access. When I was there, if one vehicle was leaving, you couldn't get out. And I don't know what the answer is, but now as you're stating that if you're going to add additional people, a lot of these campers will be leaving, and now people will be coming in, you can't get around. Those ditches are deep, and I just don't know what the answer is as far as moving forward this, because again, you can't get a police officer in there, and we bring up the rain, or if it doesn't rain, well, you can't help that. But there's something's got to be done about the congestion, and it was backed up to 33. And I just, by increasing the numbers, they're going to have more problem with that road. So I don't know what that's, for now, what I got to say about it.
Gentlemen?
Well, I guess, first of all, how many people were there on Saturday last year? Do we know what that number was? Because that was the day when the traffic was backed up. Because I agree with Randy. The traffic backed up and the dust are the things that are important to me. The dust on that road, it's like you can't see nothing, and you've got people trying to go both ways. You know, I would think that it would be better to bring people in on Calvin's Road, for instance, and then by the other way, and they go out the way where they're coming in, where at least if there's a backup, you've got a couple miles where you could back them up and there's not a lot of traffic. But there seems to have to be a flow to get people out, because that seems awful dangerous. But still, I guess my number on Saturday, that was the day where it seemed to be full, getting people in and stuff. And was that a number last year? Was it 2,600 that we had on Saturday, or was it?
That was, Mr. Chair, that was what the limit was on the permit, yes.
Well, I guess I'm asking how many people we had on Saturday. Does anybody know that, or should I not be asking that?
Nope, the wrinkles provide us numbers, and I think that it hit the 2,600 max occupancy, and that's when Sheriff Larson made the determination and called and said they had to be closed, correct? That's what the number was. Correct?
That's a pretty easy one.
I assume so. I can only assume that that's what the case was.
But nobody can give me an answer.
So I wasn't on site. I think, Commissioner Wenscher, you were on site. If I remember right, from what I heard, it sounds like you assisted with shutting that gate down. So all I have is reports to look at, and the information in those reports were that the Wrinkle staff stated at the time we shut it down that their numbers were 2,600.
Okay, good enough.
That's all I have.
And I could comment on that. I was out there, and I was watching. I was there with the Wrinkles, watching them make the count, and they're so busy there. And again, they're doing the best they can, but then the person that was in charge of the count, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, that person also, people would be coming into the I don't know what that building would have a name for it, where if they lost their wristband or something this year, any incidents, the person that was charged was pulled away. So again, as I'm watching, they're doing the best they can, and they showed me all their data that they had. And again, it's not that I don't trust the Wrinkles on it. I just didn't trust the way it was being handled, because this person would get pulled away, someone else would drive through, and it's like, okay, you missed 2 there, maybe 4. I don't know. You know, again, they're doing the best they can, but it was frustrating for me to see all these people backed up on this road, and the campground, again, it was full. There were, I think they hired staff to fill out these reports to sign for legal things, I believe. And they say it just, and again, I had to back down into the ditch when I came there just to get there, because the fact that the cars were so congested getting in there. And again, the numbers, they're handing clipboards, I believe, to, cars down the road to put the exact, I don't know how they pay, but to put how many people are in each vehicle, they had to have them all signed. But the process of counting these people just didn't fit in my what I was looking at, because I'm just sitting there going, how can you be putting one person in charge of doing this, but yet that person is getting pulled away because of this? And then you have these younger people, and not say they're not counting right, but it just was not efficient for me to do that, or to see that. So again, and I went and talked to the deputy sheriffs, and they were so grateful that that they were going to close the doors, or the people coming in, because again, it was congested, and it just wasn't a safety. It was very unsafe.
Okay.
I guess I have another question. Have we opened up any more land for camping or parking in the last couple of years? It's a question to whoever can answer it, I guess.
Not up for debate, it's just a question, yes or no?
Have you opened up more land? Because we've had this question for 2-3 years now about we can open more land. And when I was out there last year, and I've been there each year, last year they couldn't get in anymore. That's why the backup was there. I know we had a lot of rain and all that stuff, but have we opened up any more land, or have we not, or can we?
Yes, we did.
Ralph, if you want to come to the podium to answer that question, please.
Yes, we did. We opened another 20 acres.
Last year?
Since last year, for this year's event.
For this year, you're opening up 20 more acres?
20 more acres to the west side of where the event is being held right now.
Okay, because
if you do some of the slides that you bring back, it shows the next piece over.
Okay. Because what I seen last year is, well, and then back to my numbers, was 2,600 about what we had there on Saturday?
You got the information, so.
Okay. The only reason I asked that question is Saturday was full. And if you back things up a little bit and you have 20 more acres, but Friday, I don't know why you can't have up to 2,600 also, which it says you can, but it's the 5,000 or the 3,000 I think we have this year for maximum for the whole event.
The application identifies, well, two different things. The application identifies 5,000 requested for tickets sold and 3,600 per day for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's what's being asked.
That's what they're asking. Sean's recommendation was, though, 2,600 per day and 3,000 max.
Yes.
Correct? I'm trying to compare the two things. I think, you know, if you can handle 2,600 on Saturday, you can handle 2,600 on Friday. Or you should be able to handle 2,600 on Sunday. You know, should we allow more people in there than what you can handle? I don't see more than 2,600 per day. I think if you've added 20 acres, then it should be a little easier this year to park people. And if that shows that it works, then I could see where you're asking for more people for that day. But I also have a problem with the restriction on how many tickets are sold, when if you can handle 26 on one day, you can surely handle 26 on the other days. So, you know, that's only 400. If you got 2,600 on Saturday, that's only 400 more tickets that can be sold for the whole event. So that's where I see a little discrepancy. And, you know, I want to say, because I've run these events before, and I think you guys do a wonderful job on running the event. I think the security, I think it's not quite fair to use everything they found last year against them, because I think it's good. I think they found things, they wrote it down, and they wanted that number to be good, because if we don't want it to be good, I'm sure it could be half that list too. And I'm trying to find just what's right here. They're dealing with those issues. You know, we haven't talked about the mud and the rain that has happened the last couple years that created a lot of issues. But I still have an issue with getting people off the road. You know, when they're backed out to 33, and that's where I need to see something happen too, is what can we do to get people into the event? I don't know if we can make more lines. I've seen the people out there working. They do a wonderful job. You know, to have more lines, you got to have more room somewhere and more people to bring them in. But they can't be stacked clear out to Highway 33. You know, and that's why I say coming around the other way, it gives a guy a couple miles to back people up if that's a possibility. But that still doesn't deal with if we got 2,600 and they're backed up, that's all the land that we have to control this thing. So I guess I don't know what else to say. I think the cap of the 3,000 I want to question, because like I says, I think 2,600 people a day. If you have 1,000 campers in there, and I don't know exactly what you have, but you've requested, I think, 1,000 campers or something, you know, that right there is probably 2,600 people. So I'm just trying to put numbers with things and trying to make it to where, because I do understand that it takes a lot of money to make this thing work, and when you start regulating how many people come in there each day, I think when we're full, we're full. But I also think Friday and Sunday, I know those usually the numbers are down on those days compared to Saturday, but they surely should be able to be as much as Saturday, whether people left, tickets being sold. So that's kind of where I'm at on this, I guess.
Mr. Chair.
Mike, go ahead.
I kind of agree with some of what Mike said. If you had 2,600 last year and you were able to deal with the individuals, you should be able to handle it on Friday, you should have it on Saturday, you should be able to handle it on Sunday. Hypothetically, you should be able to sell 10,000 tickets, but only have 2,600 per day. That's what I think some of us question, is your ability to count the amount of individuals on your place at one time. That's where the concern comes from. And I can see how it would be difficult. I mean, Wednesday you can have 100, 500, Friday 2,600, and then another 2,600. I don't know how you keep track of people that are coming and going at one time. And to increase it to, what does he want to increase to, 3,600
a day
per day. I think we got to see how you can do with the 2,600 with the additional 80 hours of security, and maybe we can move forward from there. But I have no problem with giving the 2,600 and allowing you to have, the 5,000 tickets sold like we did last year, and with the additional security, see how you do. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
And I don't know that the sheriff hasn't addressed any of this stuff, and if he doesn't have a problem with this, I'm not going to have a problem with it. But the several things that were mentioned in the security plan or the safety plan that changed from last year to this year, besides numbers, and Ralph was very clear, and thank you, Ralph, for talking about having someone in front of a mud truck when it's moving and in back, and what's the purpose of the person in back. I think you made that very clear to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I personally question no visible open alcoholic beverages to be transported by an ATV or mud trucks. That's a change in wording from 2017, where I believe it's, without looking, it says you can't have any kind of a container of any kind, period, end of discussion. If law enforcement doesn't have an issue with that and security doesn't have an issue with it, I don't, but I notice that as a change that I personally question.
Well, can I comment?
Sure, you can.
I guess I do have an issue with that, and the reasoning for that is obviously I'd run around with my Yeti cup filled with ice and booze. I mean,
point.
And if it doesn't display a tab on the outside that says it's a beer or any other beverage, I know I'm not going to get stopped. More than likely.
And that's my point exactly. Or your can of Coke, or whatever it might be. And that's my point on that exactly. Question to, and I'm going to ask Ralph to come to the podium because he's just going to have to answer this one really quickly. It's going to be easy. If I'm a mud truck operator and I have a couple beers and I jump into that mud truck, you got a problem with that?
Do I have a problem?
I just had a couple beers. I'm not under the influence. I could pass the PBT.
Yes,
just had a few beers. Can I get into that mud truck?
Yes, I do.
So, okay.
Okay. So you were the person that had a couple of beers, all right, and you show no evidence, and you're the one that got into the mud truck.
Yep.
And caused an accident.
Yep.
Who is responsible?
That's not my question.
But that's.
Do you have a problem with me? Is there a zero tolerance of the mud truck drivers when it comes to alcohol?
Yes, all of them are zero tolerance.
That's my question.
Okay.
That's it. It doesn't say that. It says every mud truck operator must sign a waiver permitting a PBT. I'm very clear on that. But it does not say, is there an alcohol limit? You just answered the question. There is. It's zero.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. And then to follow up on what I've heard from the sheriff and what I've heard from the Wrinkles, what I've heard from Mudfest, in my personal opinion, Sheriff, your fault, my fault, nobody's fault. There is not enough badged people in Morrison County to adequately secure Mudfest if we increase numbers. If I understood you correctly, if the numbers were to stay the same, if those numbers were increased, whatever that number is up there, and it was at the same time that you could adapt and overcome with that, I could agree with that. Other than the problems that I just got done with here, if we're going to have 2 deputies inside Mudfest, one of them gets called away, okay, and that transportation officer, which I'm very clear, I know how it operates, ends up taking said person away, and 20 minutes later, there's another event inside the campground, be it what it might be. That now is going to take a deputy out of the equation, and they're going to be gone, so we're one less. And I get it. I understand that. But the point is that now you really don't have anything left on the grounds. And I understand your logic behind that, so that's where we are.
Since Ralph's there, I'd like to ask to verify his question over there about things on the four-wheelers. Are you kind of talking coolers?
We're allowing them to transport coolers. Yet the issue we changed the wording on that was because of water bottles. Yes, we don't know what any of you's having, your thermal cup or that, but we mainly, because we've had to take so many water bottles away and dump them out, and people just get upset over it. All they're doing is bringing water. That's why we changed the wording in it. But if you're driving around with a can of beer, open can of beer, anything visible, that's non-tolerable. But the water issue, like I said, even in your other cups, nobody knows here what's in them cups.
So it would read then, you can have an open container as long as it is contained to an actual water container from blank water company.
Perhaps a recommended compromise would be only water can be transported, only open containers of water can be transported while on an ATV. I mean, all of that has to be identified, but at least it would be something. I don't know.
I think we're getting a little picky on the subject. That's just me.
We might be. There's no more comment from the audience. Sorry. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you. Thank you.
If I'd like to make a comment again. What Mike Wilson brought up about the roads. I don't expect the wrinkles to. I wouldn't even expect them to put chloride on. If they're putting 300 feet of chloride on, I just think you're wasting money, you're wasting time, because again, it takes time for that to settle. Either you have to do the whole road or you don't do anything. I would be for, during the Mudfest, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they probably won't even need to put water on because there's so much traffic on that road, if it, however we decide on that they don't even have to do that. But I would be for to have them water that down prior to Friday or Thursday, and maybe quite a bit, and then after Mudfest is over, like Monday or Tuesday, to water it again. That's just how I want to throw that out. And Mike's more familiar with that area than I am, but I think that would be a great compromise, because the chloride I just don't think is going to work out there. So
I'm not exactly positive, and I'm going to have to look to the county attorney. Are we looking for an answer today? Are we beating this up some more at another planning meeting? What is the
I think we need a vote on the application in front of us today. The event's next month. I'm sure the applicants want an answer as to how many tickets they can sell on the day of the event. So I think we need to move forward with the decision on the ticket numbers.
I would look for a motion.
I've still got some questions. Can I?
You certainly can have some.
Do we have, like I say, back to my question about how many people on the ground at once, is there any room for negotiation here or not? I guess, Sean, is your plan, and that's where, because like I say, when you talk 2,600 people in one day versus You know, if you can handle 26 on Saturday, why can't we handle 26 on Friday and 26 on, which at 3,000 people?
That is his number.
I understand that, but 5,000, the number of tickets completely sold is only 3,000, correct?
That's what's identified, but the per day amount, the document reflects what was approved last year. The dates are different because this year's dates are different, but the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the non-highlighted numbers is what was approved last year. So the per day 2,600 was relevant for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
But I guess I'm having a problem with 3,000 total tickets sold. I guess to me, what you're saying there is that you can't have over 2,600, and I'm probably okay with that because of what Saturday was, but I'm not real sure about the 3,000 total tickets, because if 1,000 people left and another 1,000 come, we're still at the 2,600. So that's where I'm having a difficult time with the limit of 3,000 tickets. Yeah. If they can show that 1,000 people left on daily passes or whatever, and another 1,000 come the next day, I'm kind of okay with that.
And Mr. Chair, that's kind of what I was getting at right away when I asked that question about clarifying how tickets are sold and how that process works. So I think that exactly was the point, that it sounds like there's all weekend passes, camping passes, and then there's per day passes. So they are two different things. But our number, that 5,000 that's presented, includes both of those sets of tickets to be sold.
So you could have 20,000 for the number. There can only be 2,600 people
per day
on site per day. Mm-hmm. Could be 1 million tickets.
Well, that's just where I'm having my issue.
Is that correct, Sheriff?
So, Mr. Chair, what I did was, of course, I got to look at the past to be able to predict the future, and I think it was right around 3,600 tickets that were sold last year. So I'm like, okay, if we sold 3,600 tickets and we're at our maximum and we're shutting the gate down and turning all these other people away, I'm willing to keep that same number, 2,600, but something's got to give. Yeah. And that's why I reduced the number of tickets to 3,000.
So, Mr. Chair, the 3,600 tickets were sold last year, so that would have surpassed what was conditioned to only have 3,000 last year. Correct?
I just went off the paperwork that I received from the Wrinkles.
I guess, am I being clear on what I'm asking here? That I guess that I'm asking that we have 2,600 per day maximum on grounds. If it's 2,600 period because they sold that many tickets one day, if 1,000 leave, 1,000 should be able to come back because we can handle 2,600 a day.
Is that correct, Sheriff?
Or am I missing?
That's what it says. It says you can have 2,600 people on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm okay with the number of personnel being 2,600 on the grounds at one time, correct?
At one time,
correct.
Period. I'm not sure how you keep track of that. I'm still not sure how. Do we have to take about a 15-second break to switch tapes? 2 minute. Ladies and gentlemen,
in 2 minutes, we got to take a break.
It's 11:15. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and we will reconvene. Thank you. We will reconvene, and I believe we left with the discussion of 2,600 per day and 3,000 proposed.
Recommended by the sheriff.
Recommended by the sheriff for a number of tickets sold, and proposed by Mudfest of 5,000. And that was where we left discussion. My question would be is that at 2,600 a day, and I have to look directly at the sheriff and ask the question, 2,600 per day, you're good with that, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
I am, Mr. Chair, as long as we have the additional security, which was...
With the additional security, so...
Above and beyond of what we had last year.
Yep, with what was addressed in this new plan. My next statement is that, then does it really matter what the total number of tickets is? Well, the total number of tickets, my estimation, I just need to follow just a little bit more, could be 10 million, but only 2,600 people per day can be on this grounds.
Correct.
So, one more time, does the total number of tickets sold really have any relevance here?
I guess what I did is I went off of last year's numbers.
Yep.
And when I see that we're at our capacity at the gate and we're turning people away from the scene, I have to look to see how many tickets were sold at that point.
Yep.
And I was informed that there was approximately 3,600 tickets that were sold. So that means, to me, I have to adjust those numbers. Obviously, there were people that were turned away, and I don't know if some of those people that were turned away already had tickets. So I need to make some type of adjustment, and that's what I did on my end.
Gotcha. I understand. Understood. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, maybe Deb, you could, last year, what was the maximum total tickets they could turn this on? Oops, sorry. What was last year's total number of tickets that they were able to sell?
We approved 5,000 tickets to be sold.
Last year?
Yep, and
Okay.
the per day numbers as is here.
Okay.
The reason number 9 right now is illustrated was just because that's what the sheriff was recommending based on our planning session discussion, but I needed to clarify that 5,000
Okay.
tickets were able to be sold last year. I apologize for the confusion with that.
Good. All right, thank you. Also, this will relate to Brian. I would like, again, can I make a motion or, to amend the requirements or what they have here on the dust control?
Not yet.
I'm going to say, would I be able to would we be able to do that?
You can adjust the recommended conditions if you want to do that, yes.
So once again, I'm going to look for a motion to approve the application, the assemblance application for Mudfest.
Mr. Chair, I also move to approve the application for Mudfest with the change of 2,600 maximum per day, 5,000 maximum tickets sold. And that can be part of my motion.
I'll second it for more discussion.
Motion and a second. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to amend and put in there that they can eliminate the chloride application on the township. I don't know what township road that is, but I would recommend that they don't even have to do it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I would recommend that they really water that down 3 days prior and 3 days after. So maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday prior to Mudfest, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after Mudfest with water. I think we can eliminate the chloride for dust control. I don't know how a guy would word that, but something like that.
Mr. Chair, I need to ask a question.
Yes.
To Brian, can we regulate outside of the parameters of what the application is being asked for in terms of the days after and the days before?
So the question is, the license is for Wednesday to
Monday.
Monday. And the question is, can you...
I would like to have them apply water 3 days prior to that, so it'd be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So it'd be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because Wednesday it starts.
Yeah, so Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever. So it could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so then or even Thursday. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I just think it's not even necessary for them to put water down because of the traffic there.
I don't think that's a problem.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's
Because it's going so slow, they're not making dust, but it's when they're leaving on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or coming in quicker, then I think there's more of a dust problem, my opinion.
Further discussion.
Also, Mr. Chair, I think we should put into this application the security plan that was submitted to the sheriff for the 2,600 individuals maximum daily, which I believe was 874 hours.
Let me look on that.
That was?
Correct. Grand total 874 hours, which would give us an additional 200 hours more than last year.
Let me get
further discussion.
I guess if we make any changes here, does that, because we're voting off of their application that they presented to us.
That's correct.
We are making some changes here.
To their application.
To their application. So if we approve this application, then Sean will not, the sheriff will not give us sign off on the safety plan. Am I correct on that?
It's my understanding.
Correct. Okay, so where does that put us at with everything?
Essentially, you'd be granting a variance to that requirement that the sheriff sign off on and approve those numbers, which the board can do.
And at which time, then we might just as well take our large assembly ordinance, and this is our problem, and get in the process of it right now and redo it, because the Mudfest large assembly ordinance has nothing but variance, 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 variance written all over it. I mean, and that's all, in all respect, that's our job. Then I really don't know what we have such an ordinance for if we're not following it to begin with. I'm just saying. Further discussion. So what we're voting on right now is 2,600 people a day, 5,000 people for the weekend or for the event.
Tickets.
Maximum tickets, I'm sorry, for the event. Commissioner Wincher amended that the road doesn't need to be chlorided anymore. It needs to be watered 3 days prior and 3 days after. And that there needs to be 874 hours as presented in Sheriff Larson's presentation by security. Am I correct?
Can I question again?
Well, absolutely.
I guess with 3 days before and 3 days after, my real point is that the dust stays down. You know, and it starts early, but if it rains, they don't need to water.
Yeah.
You know, but I also feel like if when I was out there on Saturday, the dust was in the sky so much that you couldn't see nothing. You know, I think it's required that we keep the dust down so that people can see driving around and the places down there. So to me, it's a matter that the dust stays under control. You know, you're saying nothing for those 3 days when they have their major event. You know, if it's 100 degrees outside, that'll change versus if it's 70 degrees and what's going on there, because it could be watered in the evening. You can't water it when it's full of cars.
Who gets to make that determination?
Well, that's just why I'm asking the question. You're saying 3 days early, 3 days late, but nothing during. My point is that for the residents along there, I'd like to keep the dust down. That's my point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Back when that was, I don't know, implemented, it was recommended that that be put down for the neighbors.
Yes.
And that was what was determined to have been effective at the time to put down. And that's what the Wrinkles are proposing that they do. I know they have been very good about identifying that if there is dust, you do water the roads during the event. Also, this chloride was something that was done, I remember, I don't know, back in 2009, maybe. It was a while ago when we were doing this. Yeah, that it was recommended and that this be applied to help with that dust during the event too, because it stays longer than just watering, is how that came about, if I recall. And the Wrinkles are willing to do that. It's in their proposal that that's what you would identify to do. In addition to, I know while it doesn't say that, you've always at least been open about the fact that you do provide that water if it gets bad.
But again, my point is that the chloride's going to cost them more than the water, so I'm hoping that if they don't do the chloride, that they can water more often. That's, I guess, that would be.
Well, and where I'm coming from is I've liked what you've done in the past with the chloride, but the problem is you chloride in front of people's homes that want that done. The problem is the dust comes from the other 3/4 of the mile that you're driving in on and blows into their homes and so forth. So that's where Randy's coming from with the water on the road. When we say on the road, are you thinking that we're talking in front of those people's homes that are right in that corner? Or I'm thinking the whole road graveled both ways so it's not dusty out there. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe
And that's what I would agree with that. You know, it's not just in front of the place. I think that 300 feet is just for chloride, wasting it.
I need to ask Ralph that question, if they can do that, or can I not do that?
We are having discussion on a motion that's made that's pretty twisted right now. I mean, it's quite twisted right now.
Well,
because quite honestly, we're changing the whole application here. And I'm hearing one person say we water the entire road.
Eliminate
the application says 300 feet on this side or that side. So
what's chloride? What's chloride?
Yes, I understand that.
Well, I want to eliminate the chloride and then just water.
You want to change? So that amended motion that you're talking about is to water the entire gravel portions that are out there of road. Is that correct?
I think that would make a lot more sense because, again, I'm hoping common sense comes in here where if there's dust that's coming in, but again, sometimes common sense.
I think we've said that before, so.
You know.
So is that the motion?
So what were you thinking, Mike? What would you like to see?
Well, I would like to see the dust stay down. You know, I mean, when you're talking 3 days ahead, the weather has a lot to do with that. You know, when I drive out there or people are driving, when the traffic's moving, if the whole place is a cloud of dust on that road, that's a safety issue.
So you'd like to see chloride the whole thing?
No. I would like to see water more than chloride. I'd like to have dust control.
And who gets to make that determination? One more time. And I got to tell you, folks, unless it's in black and white, in all respect to everyone, who gets to make the determination?
Well, it's difficult. I think the motion or the condition could say keep the dust down, and they can choose to do that by water, chloride, or if it's been raining all day, then you don't need either.
And maybe we can also add, if it doesn't work this year, then we'll address it next year. I've heard that before.
And that isn't really what we will address
so,
the next year.
Could we rectify the motion?
Well, it's not really changing what we're... Brian, how do you want to proceed with this as far as logistically and how this works?
Remember, we do have a motion on the table.
If I may, Brian, can we just remove the chloride? Mike's agreeable to that too, the 300 feet.
I want to keep the dust down.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how you want to say it, how you want to write it, but I've promised people out there that have to live with that dust for a week that should be one of those issues that we should be able to do. So I don't know how you want to write it up.
Neither do I.
I'd say keep dust control on that highway.
Okay. So the condition presented would be changed according to your vote, or
according to the
motion to maintain dust control during the entirety of the event and leave it up to the applicant to determine how and when.
I think that's reasonable.
Yep, I do too.
For them to make that decision. I mean, I guess I know what dust control is. If the dust's in the sky and I can't see the car behind me, it's not under control.
Okay, so it's up to the applicant in this motion. 2,600 daily, 5,000 for the event. The applicant gets to decide what dust means. At 874
hours,
private security hours. Further discussion.
And again, last question, is the sheriff agreeable to that?
I am not.
Okay, that's right.
Just because on the numbers, I suggested 3,000 maximal tickets.
Further discussion.
And everything else would remain the same in the application.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask for some clarification. So I'm kind of going through what it is that we'd want to have for recommended conditions. And number 5 talks about the adhere to the components of the safety plan, except for some modifications that we've talked about. One of those being keep dust under control during the entirety of the event by means of water, chloride, or a combination of both. Reasonable. 874 total security hours is identified in the revised security specialist plan from 2 presented to the sheriff.
Totaling 874 hours.
Yep, totaling 874 hours. I heard discussion about the hand washing station. I assumed that that's going to be included, so according to shaking of heads and nodding of heads over there, that would be okay. But there was also some question about that open container. Do you want to include anything with that or address that as a component of the safety plan? I just want to make sure we're covering all bases.
Absolutely, the same language that was there before.
So no beverage of any sort. 2017 language was?
I do have a question just on that. You know, there's a lot of people that put coolers on their four-wheelers and run over to the bleachers to sit down, and that's where they have their pop and beer and stuff like that. So are you saying that they can't have those coolers on the four-wheelers?
I don't think it addresses coolers.
Well, you're talking about any beverages on the four-wheeler.
I think open beverages.
Okay.
Maybe was
Okay. I'm just trying to,
I don't know. I'm asking
I'm
you
just
guys.
trying to clarify.
Here's what it states. It says, no visible open alcoholic beverages be transported by ATVs or mud trucks.
Okay, so they could have a cooler on there.
According to that, yeah.
But the old language, Jeff, you have the old language.
The old language said no beverages of any sort are to be transported by ATV or mud trucks except by working staff members.
So the new one says that just no open beverage.
No open alcoholic beverages.
No open alcoholic beverages.
Okay, so you could put coolers on four-wheelers and drive them to where they do.
According to this.
Maybe you don't want to address it. I just wanted to remind.
No, I just want to be clear. I want to be clear on what I'm talking
sufficient
about.
as it's sitting.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion fails. Thank you.
So what does that mean?
Motion fails.
I understand. So then which plan are we going with? I guess that's what's the question here
The
now?
motion failed. We have to have something come back before us, I assume.
Or you can
Or unless somebody's making a new
make
motion.
another motion.
Anyone interested in making a new
Oh,
motion?
you know what? I'd make a motion that we keep it identical to last year, and then let's just move on.
Isn't that what, that's what we just voted on?
No, oh, no, not even close.
Well, we voted on 2,600.
No, but he was 3,000, the numbers, that's the numbers, right?
No, last year was 5,000, right?
It's 2,600 and 5,000 last year. That's just what we voted on.
Yeah, so I think what we just voted on was last year's more or less. Well, I think we have to try to come up with something here. We got Mudfest coming up.
Well, make a motion. The last one failed.
We'd probably like to see those that voted against it come up with a motion. That'd be the.
Well, I have to be honest with you, folks, that the numbers are what's wrong. And in my opinion is, based upon what I have heard today, there's not enough people with badges at the event. That's a huge piece. And there's also, to me personally, you're asking, so now I'm telling you, is that in the safety plan that was handed to me, there's just quite a few things that have been, maybe not quite a few things, but several things that have been changed. And I don't know why they're changed. No visible open alcoholic beverages to be transported by ATVs. Is it visible that this is alcohol? But it is. It's plumb full of it. It could be, is what I'm trying to say. That's what the wording was before. This is the large assembly ordinance that the county has. It is nothing but highlighted that stuff has changed here for Mudfest. I'm okay with that to an extent. But we might as well throw this right out the window, because that's pretty much garbage for events such as this.
Well, again, I'll make the motion to keep it like it was last year with all the, no change in amendments, and we just move forward. It's done. So
And
everything.
Mr. Chair, that would mean then, Commissioner Wincher, that there's a 5,000 max tickets sold?
That's what we approved last year, yep.
That was just what was voted on, so I don't know if
But again,
it's going to change.
the water, okay, so those are leaving all the amendments just the way they were. Again, Commissioner Jelinski brought up that, again, changing the no concealed alcohol, that sort like that. No changes whatsoever on the amendments or on the proposed safety plan. Everything stays the same as last year.
Mr. Chair, if I can?
Yes.
Yep. Then I would just question, what security plan are we going to be, would the board be accepting? Are they going to be accepting the security plan from last year then? Or are they going to propose the additional security that was proposed today in the presentation?
Well, I'd propose a security plan that you approved in 2017.
Okay. And the only reason, my discussion on that would be, we didn't feel there was adequate staff and security present during that event. And the board can do what they want. I'm just throwing that out there, and I'm being forthcoming on that.
And Mr. Chair, I'd have to identify, and Brian can help me out here, but it would then, approving exactly what was last year, to Sheriff Larson's point, would need number 3, that you then vary from that security plan approval by the sheriff, because I think that's what you're saying,
Correct.
Ben, because the security specialist agreement needs to be increased for him to be comfortable with what numbers occurred last year.
Or the same as last year with the number changed from 5,000 to 3,000. Would be another route.
That'd be fine.
You know, we have a lot of discussion here on what we normally would do in a planning session.
Yeah.
Can we leave this alone today? We meet next week at our planning session.
Mr. Chair, our next board meeting is April 27th. My guess is that's a little...
Oh, April 27th.
Or 24th.
I don't.
So we're talking 3 weeks.
No.
Brian, do you have anything to add?
Would you like?
I would like to see a motion that would read, and I'll make the motion myself, that would read the same as it was last year, except for the numbers. The numbers need to be 3,000 instead of 5,000. And the security plan needs to be exactly what the sheriff said it needs to be, which was presented with, what, 874 was the number?
874 hours.
Correct. And that's a motion.
The only thing I would ask, Mr. Chair, is that, and maybe it was already addressed and highlighted in there as far as the drinks go, as far as no drinks allowed?
I would, the same as it was last year, with the exception of 3,000 versus 5,000.
Correct.
And what the chloride, that's going to be
The same as it was last year.
Same as last year, so then we don't have to mess with anything. We move on.
That's the motion, which can die for lack of a second. I'm okay with that, too, but that's the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. Further discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Yeah.
You're
I'm
aye.
an aye. I'm a aye.
We got 2 ayes. Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're going right back to it.
Doesn't work either. That fails. Okay. Haven't had one of these before. County Attorney, where do we go from here? Kind of looking for direction.
Well, you can try to reach a compromise with a different motion, or if you're all done, then there will be no Mudfest event.
I'll make a motion similar to my previous, 26 maximum per day, and 4,000 tickets sold, with the same amendments as my previous motion.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Question I have, would that be something the sheriff's would? I don't like putting him on the spot. Would you approve that?
You know, and I thank you for reaching out, but I'm set where I'm at.
Okay.
My numbers.
And I guess my question is, I'd like to point to the rest of the board why you'd be going against the sheriff's recommendation for the safety and all that. And I'd put that out there.
Well, I'm not against the safety of it, and I understand that the sheriff has a particular different spot, I believe, than I'm in. His guys got to sit there all weekend, which is, to me, I think would be a long day. But I also believe $2,600 a day is $2,600 a day, regardless of how many tickets you sell. If they can prove to us that they can calculate that 2,600 people are on there and no more than that, then, you know, but maybe in the future we can go forward. But until they can prove to us that 2,600 is 2,600 and that they can handle it, they got the additional, I don't know how many additional hours it is. I heard 200 hours of security there. You know, it's an event that a lot of people come to, and I think we should give them a chance.
Well, and we're, Mr. Chair, you know, at 2,600 a day, I mean, if you have 2,600 on Saturday, that only allows you 400 more people for the other 3 days for 3,000 tickets. That doesn't make any sense to me. If we got 2,600 a day, I think they need to fill up those days. We can't have over what our maximum allowed that we can handle. If you can handle it on Saturday, you can handle it on Friday, and you can handle it on Sunday. That's
if I may, Mr. Chair, but the sheriff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, based on last year, they couldn't handle it correctly, in their opinion, with the 2,600 per day.
But that's
Correct.
why
we had
they...
a number of incidents, and I'll recap some of them. One of them being a ATV rollover that our agency wasn't even notified about. Someone complaining of pain, that being the passenger. There was other incidents where there was personnel on the ATV who were underage. In their report, minor consumption. Our agency wasn't even notified of that as well. And these were just some of the examples. So at the end of the day, how can our agency even accept or move forward knowing that we didn't have enough order? And to me, it's like, if we're going to move on, then we need to get order and control of the event, especially when I'm supposed to be in charge and sign off on the safety, health, and welfare of all the parties that are present at Mudfest. I can't do that now. And what I was suggesting is that we have more security, which, you know, the proposed plan, we will. But the problem is, let's get the event under control, and then we'll take it to the next step. We haven't had that yet.
Sheriff, with the additional amount of security, I'm just going to throw this out, in the Brotherhood of Compromise, going on the weak side of compromise, by the way, would you entertain 3,500 for the maximum number of tickets sold? Now, we've gone from 5,000. Understand, went from 5,000 last year to 3,000 this year as a number, 5,000 as a number. We've had $1 billion talked about. Would you go along with 3,500 as the maximum number of tickets sold per day, and then leaving everything else the same as it was last year?
So I guess my question, Mr. Chair, would be, when you say 3,500 and have an additional personnel, are we talking security or law enforcement?
I'm talking the additional personnel as described in the plan of private security. I'm just asking the question. And I don't mean to, like anybody else, this is a discussion. We're in open discussion right now.
I guess, you know, there's reasoning behind everything. Yep. When I look at the control and the order, and I look at the number of events, and don't get me wrong, there was less events last year than there was in 2016. But in my personal opinion, the events were more critical in 2017. Or we had a number more critical events. So when I look at that, and I look at shutting the gate down and telling personnel 1 or 2 miles long of vehicles, hey, you got to turn around. We've met our 2,600 capacity. and now we want to sell just as many tickets. To me, that's not right. So to do the right thing is to adjust things till we have control of the event, and to do the right thing is to really take a look at how many tickets were sold. And if we're looking at approximately 3,600 tickets that were sold, then that number has to be reduced. And that's how I came up with my numbers. I guess my question is, out of that 2 miles long of traffic, how many of those people had tickets? And are we going to have the same thing? So we need to get control, and that's why I'm set at the numbers. And I apologize, I really don't have room to move and negotiate. Safety comes first.
Okay. It's number 3.
And Mr. Chair, if this event wants to be held on any other weekend, I'll get as many law enforcement personnel as they want. I know this has been hashed out for a number of years, and at the end of the day, we will have more resources if you want to do it on any other weekend than Memorial Weekend.
I guess for more discussion, you know, the 2,600 on Saturday, Saturday's the biggest day. I don't see where 3,000 allowing 400 more people for the next 3 days makes sense to me. That's where I have a problem, that I don't see why it's not 4,000 or 5,000. They can't have any more than 2,600 people there in a day. So my numbers, it's just restricting them to any possibility. You know, maybe there will be more people there on Friday. If they know that there's only 2,600 on Saturday, it opens up the door a little bit to have people there for other days. You know, they're going to have to maybe do some advertising or some such that 2,600 is it. And maybe some of the local people will come other days. If we have a 3,000 limit, that only allows 400 more people for those 3 days. And I don't see that, you know.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Yes.
just to reiterate what Commissioner Lemire, I believe, just decided, which is number 3 would be included based upon what the sheriff just said, a variance of the requirement of Section 5, Subdivision 4. But number 5 would be adhere to the components of the safety requirement. The minimum 874 total security hours is identified in the revised security specialist. No beverages of any sort are to be transported, and then dust is to be controlled during the duration of the event, whether it be with chloride, water, or a combination of both. And the 4,000 max number of tickets to be sold with the dailies as listed, I believe is what you said your motion was.
Yep.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. And there we have it.
I'll make a motion to approve the safety plan with the one that the sheriff recommended.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion?
This will also include the security plan as put forth before the sheriff, the 874 hours and the beverage and the dusting. Whatever you guys want,
So, Mr. Chair, as identified up there with the same issues except number 9 changing from the 3,000 maximum amount of tickets to be sold for the entire weekend and the daily limits there.
And the conditions that were put on from last year, I'm just trying to clarify, with ATV stuff and all that?
Yep. It's the same as my previous motion with the exception of changing the maximum ticket sales.
And Mr. Chair, I'm removing number 3 that was previously there, which that means then the sheriff would sign off on that because it's a 3,000 max ticket sold, the security plan that was presented to you with the maximum of 874 security hours, and then the daily tickets of 2,600, or daily people on the.
Correct. Number of people on grounds one time, 2,600. Maximum tickets to be sold, 3,000. And I believe it was an additional 20 hours of security proposed this year versus last year.
I believe it was the 874 total security, yes. And so as you can see, Mr. Chair, I removed that. Then we have a approved security plan by the sheriff.
Correct. Further discussion? Further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
I take a 5 minute.
Go right ahead. We will also take about a 5-minute recess.
Oh, here.
On the agenda is the Social Services Report. Good morning.
Good afternoon now,
Or good afternoon,
Mr. Chair
excuse
and
me.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
The first report on my agenda is a collections report. So I have Jackie Weiss here, who is going to talk a little bit about the numbers that we collect and why we collect them. So, go ahead,
Jackie, always good to see you. Good morning or good afternoon, and carry on.
Thank you. I'm reporting today on the non-child support related collections, so this would be anything other than that. Foster care fees. If you look on your chart down the left, it's going to show you what we're collecting. So what I'm going to point out to you today is at the beginning of the year, our accounts receivable totaled $1,018,000. At the end of this year, it was $940,000. So, and of the total collections that we did in the financial assistance world, the top half, we kept within the county $10,240 of those figures. If you go to the little middle section where it says Treasury tax offset, we received from tax offset and retained, we received $2,615. We retained $182. From probate recovery, we received $202,800 and we retained $50,007. And from recoupment, from benefits when somebody goes back on, we received $8,700 and we retained $1,700. So so in that world of collections, tax offset, MA probate, those kind of things, we kept $62,852. And so the last thing that I'll talk about is the social service collections, and those categories are the ones that are 100% pure county dollars. The accounts receivable at the beginning of the year was $524,934. At the end of the year, the balance was $337,890, and we collected $59,116. The balance decreased because we again implemented for the second year a debt reduction. In other words, we are writing off some uncollectible debt, and so the balance I think depleted because we did write out in the last 2 years a significant amount of detox debt. And the one thing I want to note for you is in the foster care fees, we have been working very hard to see if we can't achieve wage withholding in those dollars, and that's shown because according to wage withholding, that's the highest we've had in the last 3 years.
And really, I think the number that I would like to point the commissioners to is the lower right-hand corner, and this is the amount of money that has been totally retained by the county on behalf of one full-time position that we have collecting on public assistance, foster care, MA estates, whatever the case might be, to ensure that people are paying what they have accrued in terms of a fee. So it's an important position that our agency has and works closely with across all the units, whether it be financial assistance or social services, because of just the variety of the services that we provide.
It's unbelievable. Gentlemen. Discussion. We do not need a motion here. This is a discussion report from Jackie.
Yep.
Do you do anything else besides collect money?
That's primarily my job.
I'd say you do a pretty good job of it.
Well, you should see the child support numbers now.
Yes, see the child, what you will.
Real nice job.
This fall, so.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We do thank you very much. I know that's a tough job to keep track of all that and to try to get money out of people, and we thank you for that.
It's not always easy, and that's part of why we decided to do some debt write-off a little bit a few years ago.
Yep.
There's just, people end up on SSI and they just are not going to have abilities and things like that. So yeah, I got to work at it both ways.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank
you very much, and thank you for waiting.
I'm going to ask Michelle Tao just to come up to the table again, if we may.
If I may, is Michelle working for the county again?
Just the last 2 Tuesdays.
Yeah. Good morning, Michelle.
Just
Nice to see
the
you.
last 2 Tuesdays. So Paul Dranger is unable to be here today because he has an executive leadership team meeting. Michelle is here on behalf of the National Joint Powers Alliance, and this is a follow-up to our conversation that we had at planning last week. National Joint Powers Alliance is a cooperative based out of Staples, Minnesota, that has shared services that Region 5 counties have been taking advantage of. And so one of the things that Region 5 counties have been working on is daycare and adult foster care licensing shared services agreement. And so Crow Wing and Wadena County and Todd County have signed on to this shared services agreement. And I'm requesting that the board approve both resolutions, both for adult foster care and for child daycare, allowing National Joint Powers Alliance to take over the licensing duties for our agency. Not to exceed $38,000 in 2018, and I anticipate that it will be less than that for both of those services. However, until we figure out kind of the total number of positions that will be needed, it may go as high as that, but we're hoping that it would be less than that in 2018, and we are working on the 2019 contracts. We currently have about 0.8 positions in daycare and 0.1 position in adult foster care that will now be able to do positions that will save us some money, specifically around adoption and guardianship and children in placements. I've had Melanie do some kind of quick numbers crunching, and if you anticipate that a child is in foster care for 30 days less than anticipated, it's $1,000, at least $1,000 savings for our agency. And as we talked about last month, there are about 90 kids in out-of-home placements. We are trying to transition a lot of those kids to relatives and to adoptive homes and create some security and safety for those kids. So these positions will be able to do that, as well as move into Minnesota Choices, which is funded through a time study. And so, but I do think more so the benefits of moving these positions to National Joint Powers, as well as the recruitment, retention, and training that National Joint Powers Alliance will be able to provide to our licensed providers. Currently, because of the mandated services that we're required to provide, and as we look at those in terms of vulnerable children, vulnerable adults, looking at ensuring the safety of those folks, child care and adult foster care do not always get the attention they need. And as we know, it's an economic driver to businesses. We need available and accessible child care. And National Joint Powers Alliance will be able to do that on a much broader scale. So
I would look for a motion on the resolution.
I'll make a motion. We discussed this here at our last
planning meeting. Got a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Brad, I just want to thank you I know you've worked on this program for a long time, and I think coming together with the other counties and working together on this makes a stronger program than each of us having a little bit of each one, a third-time person. So I appreciate all the work you've done, because I know you've done a lot of it to make this all happen. So thank you.
And Brad, this actually is something new now, right? Or is this in addition to what?
This would be a new shared services agreement between the 5 counties in Region 5, which Morrison is signing on to, and the National Joint Powers Alliance.
So today, it's going to cost us $38,000, and I get that, and I get that you're taking it from fund balance. But tomorrow, next year, the following year, and so on, this is scheduled to be a cost saver for Morrison County. Am I right?
Well, that is the hope, that it will allow us to do things that are revenue generating or reduce costs in other areas, specifically in out-of-home placements. Just the capacity in out-of-home placements and the amount of money that is costing the county is dramatic. The other thing that I would say is that any contracted service that we pay for, automatically 15% will be reimbursed by the federal government based on our time study. So that's beyond what we save in out-of-home placements or in the revenue we generate from in choices.
Okay, very good.
And Mr. Chair, we should note too that NJPA is going to be working with providers and hopefully to get more providers within our county to provide childcare for parents.
Okay. And even given their work currently with Crow Wing and Wadena counties, they have had some meetings here in Little Falls to encourage some daycare centers and daycare providers to begin providing some of that service, as well as across the region. And I think just one other, critical function that NJPA can provide our licensed providers is the educational side of their business. So hopefully being able to enhance the training.
And that's something that we're looking into, is looking at more strategic ways for recruitment for the providers in Region 5.
Yeah. So I think given both lines of their business, it fits well with licensing providers for training, recruiting,
excellent,
and maintaining.
Excellent. Thank you. Further discussion?
And again, just to read it, this is an approval to sign both resolutions that are before the board.
Yes.
One for each of those specific licensing activities.
Yep.
I just got a little question. Brad, we were spending money before, though, on somebody. So the $38,000 is in total brand-new money because we had been paying somebody to do these services before.
We have been paying somebody. We're going to continue to pay those folks, but they're now going to be doing other services within our organization. That's why we're taking money out of fund balance.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Doing services that are money generating.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. And I'm guessing you can stay where you are, because I think it could be the public health.
I could stay, but you can go. Thanks, Michelle.
Michelle, thank you very much, and good to see you.
Nice seeing you, Michelle.
Good to see you, Michelle.
And Mr. Chair and board, I did ask Jennifer, she needed to leave for lunch and some appointments that were coming up.
Okay.
And so we are going to move the WIC report to the last board meeting in April.
Okay.
So we can go beyond there. And then I have 3 food, beverage, and lodging requests. The first is to approve a 2018 annual new establishment license for Angler's Corner and a seasonal establishment license for Piers Campground and Clubhouse.
So move.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
And then the second request is a new owner tobacco license for Angler's Corner in Cushing, and this used to be Western Liquors, so the first and the second are Western Liquors has new owners, and so they are now also asking for a tobacco license.
Motion?
Move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Or I should say, against? None. That motion passes.
And the next one is to approve a renewal application for consumption display permit at the Falls Ballroom for April 1st through March 31st, and this is 1 year. And then an on and off sale liquor license for Robert Henry Boyd at Angler's Corner. And again, just it's somebody bought Western Liquors in Cushing.
That's what Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
That's all I have today, Mr. Chair, Commissioner.
Brad,
Thank you.
Thank you very, very kindly. Next item is Land Services. Amy, good morning. How are you this afternoon? Did I say morning again? I did.
I'm good. I'm good.
Morning somewhere. Yes, morning somewhere, that's right.
All right. So I have 3 things for you, and then Jean has something too. The first one is consider the conditional use permit for Robert and Rebecca Jansen. And this is to expand to a Tier 2 feedlot. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, and with 7 conditions. The 7 conditions were abide by local and state law, notify road authority when hauling manure during road restrictions, abide by the Good Neighbor stormwater and feedlot odor minimization plans, plan to maintain a 50-foot wide grass buffer around the perimeter of the barns after construction for ongoing stormwater management. Stockpiling of manure shall not occur on site unless upon a stacking slab or a 40 by 40 concrete slabs extended from the ends of the barn or upon areas identified by the feedlot officer that meet all stockpiling requirements. 6, off-site manure stockpiling shall be upon suitable soils and away from sensitive features. The property owner shall identify to manure transfer site owners suitable areas for stockpiling. And finally, the property owner shall notify the feedlot officer of manure cleanout.
I would look for a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I have one question on number 6 condition off
Yes.
site. Is that something that we have the ability to do, is provide conditions on someone else's property?
Great question. There was some discussion at the planning commission meeting about that. And the way this is written is that it's putting the requirement on the CUP application or the CUP holder to provide that information. So it's not putting a condition on those properties for proper stockpiling, and they're subject to those rules anyway. They need to properly stockpile. But this is really putting a condition on that person that's transferring the manure to provide the information for the suitable stockpile areas. And so if there is a violation of that, that would be, show me the information you gave to the receiving property owner on adequate stockpile areas.
So is that part of the manure application plan or whatever that we require?
No, unfortunately, when you transfer manure, the only property or the only land that needs to be addressed for manure application and storage is what the applicant owns. If it's transferred, they're showing us a transfer agreement and identifying adequate acres. So it's a little bit different of an animal when that manure is transferred, and that's why this was put in.
All right, and then I just have one more question. It says a 40 by 40 concrete slab extended from the ends of the barn.
Correct.
Plural. Do they need
Yes.
to have it on both ends of the barn?
Correct, and on both barns, because there is one existing barn now. And so the Planning Commission intended for them to add that slab on the end of the existing barn and then also onto the end of the other one.
So both ends of both barns?
Yeah.
Or
Correct.
one end on both barns?
Both ends on both barns.
Because they both open on either side, or is, oh, okay.
They clean out both ways.
I realize that. But also, that individual, he wasn't going to be cleaning at each barn at the same time.
Correct.
So it would be, he could actually take his manure from the one barn and put it on the end of his other barn.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
He certainly could choose to manage his barns that way.
I talked to a poultry farmer, and he said a 40 by 40 foot slab on one end would be sufficient to stockpile his manure, and that's how he does it. I mean, it's possible to, I think that might be a little overreaching, but it's, I don't know, what do you guys think?
Mr. Chair, I think that the 40 by, the size at least was in keeping with a condition that had been put on another applicant's barn. But this one, it went a little bit farther, I think, because the soils are not suitable for stockpiling on site.
And yeah, I understand that. I do have a problem with putting a condition on his other barn. For some reason, it doesn't sit well with me. I could support doing the 40 by 40 on the new barn that he's putting up, but I have a hard time putting a condition on his other barn. I don't know if I'm wrong or not. But it's just,
No, that's
would like to get rid of
a
that.
fair question. I think when we look at when you're going to a tier 2, how you're getting to a tier 2 is we're looking at what you've already got plus then that additional barn. So we're considering the entire operation within that application, so that that first barn is part of that tier 2 operation. And so that's why sometimes we will see conditions on that first barn or that tier 1, what made it a tier 1 facility too.
And that's a good question there, Commissioner Liver, but if it's a tier 1, they're not required to have all these amendments or whatever. They just get the permit over the counter.
No conditional use permit is required. They are still held to all of the stockpiling standards and all of that in the Minnesota feedlot rule.
So what would happen in that tier 1, and I don't know that you know this, when they built the first barn, I don't know when that was, but they didn't have to have any kind of a slab of any kind at that time, am I correct?
No.
And that is only because they were a Tier 1, or because nobody really cared at that point in time? Has it been that long ago?
Well, Tier 1 doesn't require a conditional use permit, so it wasn't before the Planning Commission or the board to look at it as far as for conditions. When it comes to stockpiling standards, manure application standards, you are, no matter what tier you are not relieved of those requirements within the Minnesota Rule 7020. So those stockpiling rules apply to that Tier 1 today. And so that slab part, however, may or may not have been looked at that time, as far as if it was under the purview of a CUP.
Mr. Chair, this might be a misunderstanding on my point, but I never realized that we're talking both ends of the barn. You know, I don't know if that even came up in discussion, did it? I mean, I presume when we talked to 40 by 40 slab, we were talking one end of the barn, but
you certainly can rewrite that condition. This is a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So if you want to clarify that condition or put different language in there, that is absolutely.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, I sat there, I'd never realized that we were talking both ends of the barn. That's probably my misunderstanding, but I never, you know, when I talked about a 40 by 40 slab outside, I'm referring that they can push the manure out to that slab and take it. I guess I never, I'm not sure that 40 by 40 on each end needs to be, but do you feel that the board themselves that night knew it was both ends? Or
that was my understanding of it.
Okay, okay.
I can't speak to the rest of the board members. But it certainly can be changed.
If I may, Mr. Chair, again, you know, it's a good point, but again, every farmer does things a little different as far as how they clean out. These barns are 600 and some feet long, so if that person's got to push that barn from one side or that manure, you know, that's a lot of pushing. Again, I know they don't clean them out 6 times a year. Maybe it's a little overkill on the slabs, but for me, convenience, I'd like to have if that's the case, if I'm having to have, you know, I don't have to get it and haul it to the other side.
That 600-foot barn, they can't push it all to one side, can they?
Sure they could.
Yeah, they do. They do? Yeah, they do, but.
I know it doesn't say you have to.
No.
The new practices nowadays are they only clean half a barn.
About 6 times.
And then they spread the other half onto the new half and vice versa. But it was just, I thought it was overkill myself, but I am open to whatever you guys decide.
I'm only saying because I didn't perceive it that way, and if it was perceived by the board that way that night, you guys were there too, then I'm okay with that. But I never heard both ends of the barn. I just never thought of that.
Again, I don't know. Is this first barn, is that a 2-story or is it a 1-story?
I believe it's a 1-story barn. Mr. Chair, I'll just remind you, the Planning Commission is a recommending body.
Right.
And so you have the ability to, you were at the hearing as well, and so you have the ability to take a look at these conditions and tweak them in any manner
Kind of making me look a little foolish also, because I don't remember, but I recall Jansen's were there, and I don't recall any objection.
But I think we talked about a 40 by 40 slab on the end, because he asked the other gentleman what size his was in 40-40, but I never thought of 2 ends. I mean, I know there's 2 ends to a barn.
Me neither, nor did I.
I'd like to make a motion that we put this on one end, and then so that I have more clarification from the planning board when they're talking about this. But on this permit, I'd like to see it on one end.
Of each barn or just the one?
Because the other barn has no slab at all.
Is that a 2-story barn, though?
It's a 1.
Is it 1-story?
It's now in Tier 2, so that's why the requirement, and I'm okay with that.
But again, if I may, Amy brought up there's a soil difference on this one where it's required.
Yeah.
Soil's not suitable for stockpile around the barn.
Right.
Because it does say, where does it say that?
So in condition 5, it gives the operator three different options for managing manure. Either you put it on a stacking slab, you put it on a concrete slab, or you find a place on your property that's suitable for stockpiling. Those are the three options. So if he doesn't want to pour those slabs, then he needs to find a spot on his property that's suitable for stockpiling then.
Okay, so you're saying that he does not have to put a 40 by 40 slab if there's a suitable spot?
Well, yeah, the way this is written, it says stockpiling of manure shall not occur on site unless upon a stacking slab or 40 by 40 concrete slabs extended from the ends of the barn, or upon areas identified by the feedlot officer that meet all stockpiling requirements.
And I don't believe there was any identified place to put it, so he needed to have that 40 by 40 slab.
Not immediately around the barn.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I guess I'm okay with the way that says then, because he's got the option. The option is that he does not have to put a 40 by 40 slab on if he's got suitable ground to put it somewhere else.
Or he puts in a stacking slab.
Or a stacking slab.
No, I don't think both ends. I don't think that. Yeah, it does. Does it say both ends?
Yeah, it says ends of the barn, plural.
Oh, I'd like to take that off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the end. So you want one 40 by 40 on the end of each of the barns? Is that?
If there's not suitable, suitable ground.
Okay. So leave the rest of the language the same, except just.
Take the S off.
Yeah, well, that makes a big difference, and if it's not suitable soil, we should not be allowing it to be stacked there. So that's.
Well, he can, but as long as he puts cement down.
Right,
yeah.
right.
May want to put
I'm
it on
okay with
slab
that.
because he doesn't have to take it out in the field and try to find it.
So did someone make a motion?
I think there is one.
Mike made a.
I think there is a motion.
Commissioner Lemire made the motion.
I think there is a motion.
Wilson seconded it, and then we're discussing that change of wording for that condition, which is going to be.
So the S comes off of end.
Yep.
And it's on either end.
The way that's reading, according to what Amy just said, it's not requiring him to construct the concrete slabs unless he wants to stockpile manure there. So this would then give them or him the ability to decide how he wants to clean his barns, and if he wants to house any manure on either end, then he puts a slab on either end, but it's not going to require that unless that happens.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're going to stockpile it at the end of your barn, it needs to be on a 40 by 40 slab.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, no, I agree with that, but if they had suitable soil at the end of their barn, this is saying they wouldn't have to put a 40 by 40 slab
No,
in.
this is saying that he can't stack it on site unless it's either on a stacking slab, on a 40 by 40 slab at the end of the barn, or on an area that meets the requirements for stockpiling. We already know, as part of staff report, we already know that the area immediately around the barn is not suitable.
Yep.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Just take the S off, and do we have to amend that to take that S off, or is that?
Well, based on your discussion here, everybody seems to be okay with those conditions. Brian, is that okay that we adjust it accordingly here?
Yes, yes, you can.
Are you talking about amending a motion? Or amending that?
Yeah.
Well, that's conditions that we're voting on the condition of.
I know, but I just wondered if he had to change his motion to change that condition. Okay.
Shouldn't have to.
Thank you.
So further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Okay.
Good discussion. Good discussion.
Absolutely.
No, that's what your job is.
The next one is to consider the conditional use permit for Randy Sayre and Daryl Sayre. This is to establish a Tier 2 swine feedlot, and this was also recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with 4 conditions. 1 is abide by local and state law. 2, notify road authority when hauling manure during road restrictions. 3, abide by the good neighbor, stormwater, and feedlot odor minimization plans. And then the 4th is prior to stocking the barn, the existing manure pit must be abandoned in compliance with MPC requirements and inspected by the feedlot officer.
Look for a motion.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Just one question.
I think it was.
How come we don't require the owner to notify the feedlot officer of manure clean out when they clean out.
This is liquid manure, and so generally there's no, number one, there's no stockpiling, and generally that condition, or the Planning Commission was recommending that condition when we were dealing with solid manure, that would be stockpiled and not land applied right away.
It's stockpiling.
Yeah, and so it's the difference between a liquid and a solid manure.
Perfect, thanks.
Further discussion?
Liquid, is what
Nope.
you're telling me?
Yeah, there you go. That's where you got that pit. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Jeff, could I ask a question? You know, a lot of people have come up and asked, how come we have more barns and we don't do that? We've done a lot of work throughout the last few years, if I'm not mistaken, Amy, and correct me if I'm not, but there's a lot of work that these people have to do with identifying property and recording things where the officers can go so that we don't put too much on land.
Yes.
And a lot of things, and we're still working on that. Am I correct on that?
Well, it's the performance standard that they need to submit a manure management plan. And within that, they're looking at the volume of manure that they're producing, the nutrient content within it, and then identifying the number of acres that are needed to apply it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next
Right.
item.
And then before I call Jean up, I've got just one other item for you that was kind of a last-minute add-on. We spoke last week at the planning session about the purchase of an additional vehicle for land services, not to exceed $23,000. I'm asking for approval for that.
Also move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Motion and a second for land services to purchase a vehicle. Where's that money going to come from?
That is budgeted. Half of it is coming out of the aquatic invasive species, and the other half is coming out of the buffer budgets, which is within my 2018 budget.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
And myself is an aye. That motion passes.
Thank you. And then I've
Thank
got
you.
Jean here to discuss an abatement.
Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Jean.
3 abatements,
Good afternoon again, right?
all described in your packets. Do you want me to review them? Any questions? Looking for approval on all 3?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm just trying to wake him up.
Motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the abatements? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? That motion passes. Was it simple?
Thank you.
Piece of cake.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you very kindly. Steve is in the house and has been patiently waiting. Good afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon. You got that one right this time.
Yes, I did, finally.
All right, what I have before you is a revision to an electronic transaction policy that we've had in place since 2013. One of the changes is apparently that some of the rules change where we have to do this on an annual basis. And one of the other things is that a list of the transactions that transpire through electronics are going to be coming to you with, at the end of the month with the board. You know, when we pay warrants, we'll have a listing of all these transactions. And these are just usually payroll, state taxes type items. These are all requirements that we have to make, but apparently the state wants us, you guys to see these, so that's part of this revision, so.
Look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Steve, thank you.
And I guess the other thing would be to approve the warrants, I guess, would be next. I'll take care of that, too.
Excellent.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants and the bills, and
Second.
It's a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes. Thank you.
All I have.
And thank you very
very
kindly,
much,
Steve.
Steve.
Appreciate it. And County Board Public Works. And good afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you for waiting for such a long time.
No problem. Very interesting. I have something for you today that you guys hate to do, and that's all I do, and that's spend money. So here we go. My first item on the agenda is the award of contract 4907021, contract 279, for the amount of $268,689 even to AAA Striping Service Company for sinusoidal edge line construction. It's a highway safety improvement project that we have received a grant for. We received 5 bids, and AAA Striping was the lowest bidder. We asked that the board would adopt the resolution awarding that contract to them.
I'd look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The next item is the major portions of our work for 2018. It includes the resurfacing of County Road 270, 272, also resurfacing on County State Aid Highway 26, County State Aid Highway 33, and the widening and bringing up to standards the south half of County State Aid Highway 45. The abstract of bids was included in the packet. We also received 5 proposals. The lowest proposal was from Tri-City Paving in the amount of $4,234,914.69.
Look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, and this is also a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The next item is in preparation for our next cell construction at the landfill. We are proposing to crush out about 80,000 tons of gravel in preparation for that new cell. We solicited proposals and we received 7 proposals for this work. The lowest bidder was Sanders Construction at $148,800. We'd recommend that you award this to Sanders Construction.
Look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. This is also a roll call vote after we have discussion, if we have any. No discussion. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the department made application for and were successful in receiving a grant from the Department of Natural Resources for $150,000, which required a $50,000 match, in which we are proposing to recap Pier 2 and rehabilitate the stems of Pier 1 and Pier 2 of the Sioux Line Trail Bridge over the Mississippi River. We solicited proposals and we received 5 bids for the work. The lowest bidder was Eagle Construction Company at $197,727 even. We'd recommend that you award this contract to Eagle Construction.
Look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
For discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My last resolution is a redo that we made a mistake when we presented a resolution at the last board meeting. The documentation was for the regional designation for the Sioux Line Trail. We had the line on the resolution calling for Belle Prairie Park, which we are working on at the same time, but the Sioux Line Trail is the only one that is ready right now. We'll be coming back with Belle Prairie Park shortly, but I would request that we would rescind the resolution of 2018-23, which called for the Belle Prairie Park designation, and adopt the new resolution, which is the Sioux Line Recreational Trail designation.
Look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, this is also a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes. Steve, I think that's it for you.
Thank you very much.
Holy moly. Thank you, Steve. Have a good day. John.
John.
Are we waiting on anybody else?
No, they can't make it today.
That's okay.
If we're waiting
It's not going to cost us money. We're fine with you guys. Too.
It's okay. Yeah, that's exactly right. Otherwise, there's the door.
Cost you money.
Time for an update. Mike's here, John's here. We've been working on the project. I've been giving you little tidbits about what's been going on, but there are a few formal items that we need you to address, and then wanted to be able to kind of give a brief update on what it is we're doing and what we need you to. What did I do? Oh, what I need you to address. And so I think I'm going to turn over to Mike.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with an update of what we're doing in the project right now. We're just wrapping up the last of the demo. We've got some concrete walls that they're finishing up cutting right now. Then the guys they're installing steel studs, roughing and electrical, plumbing, HVAC, sprinkler. They're also installing some structural steel for some of the openings that we're making. And then that'll continue actually for the next few weeks, and then we'll get ready for drywall here in a few weeks. So, but that's the basis of what's going on. There's a lot of mechanical, electrical rough-ins right now. So,
sounds good.
How's it going for you, John?
Good.
Good. Excellent.
You have lots of tours? Yeah, quite a few.
We did. On Friday afternoons, we'll wait a little bit until there's some more changes again, but it's been a nice way to get some employees.
Nice and hollow down there.
Yes.
Not anymore.
It
changed.
Excellent.
What do you want to, what screen, Mike?
We can, if you want to take a look at the budget first or the PRs, either way.
Probably do it a PR. Let's go to the computer PR. That one.
Just hold on, I won't make you stand on your head. All right.
This is PR number 3. And PR number 3 is for the addition of a data room in the 1960s building. And it's also to replace some existing wiring, which we were not going to do anything with during the original scope of this project. But this price would include both. One, to build the room, equip it with electronics, and then also in the 1960s building, update the remaining data cabling.
Okay, and the reason that, if you remind me, and Joe's not here, he got a little late, but the discussion that we had about why this was necessary had to do with the span of length that the fiber or the cabling would have to run to go to the data room in the basement of the 70s building where IT is going to be housed. And so once that was looked at, it was determined it really ought to have a data room in that 60s building so we can make sure that we have adequate technology service, is kind of how I understood it, of everything that's going to be housed there. The motor vehicle office has a lot of data back and forth with the state, and once we kind of looked at the span on where it is, it really ought to be built over there too, so we don't include all these updates, have this great service building to serve people, but then not have adequate technology. And so that's why this change is recommended and wasn't in that first round of plans that we had.
Because the cable is dragged out that far?
It'd be a longer, if they took it from the 70s building, it'd be a longer, and so what happens with technology is getting faster and faster, it would slow them down.
Yep.
But we're actually only talking about the cable. So we've got the equipment's at one end, and you're running the cable. It's
correct.
Is that it more than anything right now?
Right now, and now with this proposal, we're putting that equipment in that building.
And obviously shortening the cable.
Yes.
Right.
Gotcha.
So we're going to add a data center. Right now, there's the one where it exists right now in the 90s building in the basement.
Yep.
Then there's the one that's being built in the 70s building. And then we're proposing to add an additional data room over in the 60s building to make sure that we're not taxing that span.
That's technology. That's just part of that game.
But this has a cost to it that exceeds what it is I can approve. And where is the cost, Mike? Is it in here?
It should be on that first sheet. One more up.
Are we still in the
right there.
ballparks here? We're not going out of the ballpark, are we?
I don't know what you mean, going out of the ballpark.
We only have so much money to spend.
Exactly, and that's why there's contingencies built in the hopes that by the end of the project, I can't say what else is going to come up. The 70s had the 70s building, and this is Mike's explanation to me, that we likely won't have as many, hopefully, as we move forward in small changes because we have better plans on what we're working on. I think I've explained that to you before. This is the first one that we have that exceeds the value that it is I can approve. There hasn't been it's been a few thousand here or something that's happened here and there in terms of things that we found that we need to fix. But this one has a higher cost, and that's $28,700.
Why is the cost, I mean, we were still going to do this somewhere else, were we not?
We're adding an additional room, though.
Okay.
Once we started looking at it and realized that the data room wasn't in those original bid documents, and when IT was doing their, what Mike said?
They've got a data room in Area A, which is in the 70s building, and I think what he was requesting is he'd like one closer to the 60s area because of the high volume of data just in that building alone. It's not that you couldn't function out of what you have in the drawings now. I think it'd be better off long-term, I think is what he's thinking, that you'd be closer to the area where the most traffic was at, I think.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that wasn't caught right away until IT was taking a look at it and realized that in order to do it right, we challenged Joe and said, are you sure this is necessary? And he's like, well, we can make it work without it, but I'd hate to have poor technology service and set it up for that when we're doing everything else new. So this was one that we still wanted to come to with a recommendation to move forward.
I also believe we were just going to do new cable for the new area we were remodeling, and part of the IT department, I think they were actually going to do it out of their own budget at some point, was replace the cable that we weren't touching in the building. I think they were going to update that. So that's a part of this PR also. So
if I may, Mr. Chair, on the contingency fund, you show 18,931. This does not include that, correct? Was that change orders prior that came out of contingency
yes.
fund?
Yeah,
okay.
This is prior.
So this would be additional.
That's correct.
So I'm not exactly positive, so I have to ask the question. Do we have to make a motion for this?
Yes.
That's what I'd look for, is a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I got one other question. Our original bond was how much again? What was it, like 10.2, 10.5? I don't know.
12.27, 12.
Yeah.
12.4.
Okay, so 12.4, and now original contracts was 10.2. That's what the bids were, correct?
Not what the bids are. That's actual the total with architectural, CM fees, contingency, general conditions.
So right now, with all that, where our bond was 12.2 million or whatever, and right now we're at original contract was 10.2.
Yes.
But in there is that contingency fund of, so we're kind of starting to eat up that a little bit.
Yes, the original contingency fund was 497,292.
Perfect.
Further discussion? I'm thinking, is this a roll call?
Mm-hmm.
This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes.
Okay.
That's pretty easy.
The other PR that we need you to.
Oh, yeah, always one more.
Where are we at?
Is this one called PRM2?
No, this would be PR9.
PR9.
It's right after 8.
Andy, I don't know what we would do without you.
PR9.
I can see.
This is 3.
There it is. All right.
Mike, what?
I think you got to keep going.
No.
You got a lot of documents on that first
Okay.
PR.
Oh,
There you go.
one more. Yeah,
Number 9.
right there.
Okay. This is the total on it. Do you want more? Or do you want the other thing? Do you want this? All right.
PR 9 that you have in front of you is for the addition of a generator to run emergency lighting and also non-emergency power, backup power for data rooms. What you had before was, or in the original building, you had lighting that ran off of the existing generator that you have. It's my understanding through the engineers that you cannot reconnect to the generator because of its classification and it's connected to the jail and how they have to calculate connected load. And so what they had designed was the light fixtures would actually have like a battery and a charger in them for emergency egress lighting. We looked into what the maintenance cost would be over time, and then also what the cost of the generator would be. And the total cost between it is $40,178, and that would be for the addition of the generator, and basically included in that cost is deletion of the battery-operated light fixtures or the emergency battery-operated light fixtures.
So what originally happened here, and John can explain it more, we realized that they bid out, the engineers designed and bid out a battery backup system for the lights, and that was just in that 70s building area, correct?
It's throughout this project.
The project, the whole entire project.
Yes.
Okay, so they bid that out because that would typically be a less expensive approach on providing that requirement that we have to have emergency lighting backup responses. And this is me in layman's terms, so sorry. And so the bid came in lower because it was a less expensive route to have these battery backups. But we haven't taken that approach in how we operate in the past. And John can explain a bit more about that because of the labor-intensive approach you have to have at battery backup lighting for emergency. You have to check the batteries, you have to log it, you have to produce that when there's an inspection or if there's an inspection. And so instead of having that labor-intensive approach at that emergency lighting, we have generator backups that are there. When it was bid out again, they looked at battery backups instead because it's less costly. And once we realized that that's what was bid, we asked, boy, we'd really like to keep it on generator because it's way easier. There's less labor involved in that. Let's take a look at what the cost differences are and how we would go about meeting code with that. And this is that product, right, or the result of that.
So you're talking about installing another generator?
Correct.
Another diesel engine that you, next to the one you have downstairs?
This one's going to be natural gas that'll sit outside Deb's
area. Will sit outside?
Yep.
Okay, so when the power goes out, this is going to keep everything alive, or is it just keeping the lights alive?
Emergency and all our data closets, because now our phones are off of the data loop. So they'll keep our phones up and the emergency lights on.
Phones, computers?
Computers.
Everything's hooked up to it.
Anything that's run out of those data closets will be
all battery backup. Okay.
No, will be generated. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm correct on this, Mr. Chair, but correct me again. Was the engineers recommended going the other way? This is something that we're kind of going against what the engineers are saying?
Basically, the engineers looked at putting this out in a low cost, as low as cost as we could, because we were pushing that. We didn't know if the project was going to fit in our budget, and they also never asked us what we preferred on this. I just did some calculations here this last week, and basically with the $40,000 that we're asking to do this, it's a 5-year payback. And that 5-year payback's based on my staff going around checking these lights, documenting them, and then replacing batteries.
And I would say the quality of a hardwired versus battery has got to be better.
Oh, right.
So, John, is this all connected to a battery backup prior to this?
No, we're on the other generator. But being the codes have changed.
But those split seconds that go by, the generator doesn't, or does it?
It's within seconds. You got to be less than 10 seconds for emergency.
So you don't lose
You lose a little bit, you'll get that flicker, and then they'll come on.
Okay.
And the sheriff's department has their own generator then? This has nothing to do with that, right?
Run a battery backup there first, though.
On their 911 system, they do
On the
have
stuff
a
that
UPS.
cannot, period. go down.
Correct, cannot have that blip.
And that's, I think, what I was referring to, more of a UPS package.
Yes.
That kept it going first before the generator kicked in. But you're
Correct.
saying that's not going to happen. It's just generator.
This is just generator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is what we have now and how it works.
I'll make a motion to approve this, Chair.
Okay, got a motion. Need a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Further? Hearing none. Those in favor, this is also a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That motion passes.
Is there anything else,
They're
Mike?
really just about to the end.
Mike?
I
is there-
don't think so.
Okay. Well, this is the process in terms of how it goes when we have a change order. Hopefully they're not frequent in terms of things that come up in the project. But I think on a monthly basis, we're going to start a rotation where you get an update on more detail. I think Pete might come in too, and Steve Johnson will come in periodically to identify and let you know where we're at on budget. That report's in there, but go through in detail kind of what's happening. So I think
Sounds good.
we'll end it unless you have other questions today. It's kind of a long day.
One was a change order 3, one was a change order 9. Is there a 4 through 8 in there?
Yes, but those were, those amounts have been what I can sign off on.
18,000.
Yep, exactly, what it's added up to, yes,
And some of those change orders you see in there were deducts.
yes.
So
We're what?
were deducts, we didn't pay for them, they gave us money back.
I like that.
Yeah.
So do we.
Some of the, I think I've kind of talked to you a little bit about some of them. There was a Windows one was one. There was a backflow thing on some plumbing. We opened up some pipes that were there and they needed to be replaced. So we ended up doing a change order to have that replaced anew because of the state of repair they were in. And there were some with the electrical outlets on an outer wall over in the first floor on how they're done. So there's been things like that have come up. Some structural issues once they opened up a wall and realized that some additional structure needed to be put in place in order to be able to have the load it was on, things like that. I'm learning a lot about that, and Mike probably rolls his eyes every time he has to come talk to me to explain it to me. But yes, that's what happened with those other numbers, Mike, is that there are other change orders, but lesser costs.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Appreciate your time, both of you.
John.
Administrators report.
All right, I have a few different things, and we have some closed session items, but we'll address what's happening right now that needs action. There's a vacancy in the Extension Committee from District 3. Commissioner Winter recommends Liz Verley to fill the vacancy for a 3-year term, 2018 through 2020, and Ms. Verley is willing to serve.
A motion?
Second.
Discussion? Bringing Liz back, huh?
She was, by acclamation, she had to stay off for a year.
Yep.
And then
Yep. She likes it. She really does like to be on this board. Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
All right. And then Joyce put this under my report, didn't know if Deb Lau would be here, but approve an exempt permit to the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association held a raffle on May 21st at LeBlanc.
Look for a motion.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
All right, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of closed session items that we have, one for my annual performance appraisal and one to talk about I'm losing my words, the active lawsuit that we have going on right now. We wanted to discuss that again. And so I have those to approve, but my recommendation would be we do schedules first.
I would agree. Schedules we're going to need this time from, I'm anticipating, April 7th. April 7th until, what are we thinking, Tabitha? April 21st?
No, because the board meeting's not till 24th, so through the 28th.
Through April 28th.
There's 3 weeks.
So this is kind of a long one, April 7th through the 28th. Mike, do we want to start with you?
Okay. And we're starting on the 7th?
On the 7th of April.
It's a Saturday.
Or the 8th.
This Sunday.
Yep, Sunday. Okay, I've got a planning session at 8:30
What
that
day?
evening.
What day?
And I don't know what happens there, but I've got confirmation that night with my son, so somebody else is going to have to take that for me. I sit on the planning.
Actually, there is no alternate.
Okay.
What day are you talking about?
Well, on the 10th, that Tuesday.
Oh, 8:30 in the morning.
No, it's
Planning commission you're talking.
I've got planning session, 8:30 in the morning. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yep.
Planning meeting on, yep, go ahead.
Okay, Student Department. The Tri-County Board meets at 3 o'clock in Staples on the 11th.
Okay.
Isn't that Wadena?
Yep.
It's,
You said
yeah.
Staples.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yep, it's Wadena that night.
It's Wadena.
Okay, we have a planning session on the 17th.
And just like, it's 3 to 6 in Wadena. That's what the times are.
Community Development at 12:15 on the 17th. The 18th, Township meeting, and that's at Little Falls Township, I think.
That's correct.
And is the time 7 o'clock?
7.
Yep.
PM.
Okay. It looks like on the 21st, Lake Chamina's got their lid meeting.
It's at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock, yep.
Lincoln and Bend, whatever.
And that's a public hearing. Lake Chamina at the church.
Yep, at the church.
Lincoln Church.
How far am I going here?
28th.
Okay, on the 23rd, I got a planning commission.
That's at 7 p.m.
7 o'clock. 24th is a board meeting. That's it.
Okay. Then let's go to Commissioner Lemire.
Yellow Ribbon on the 9th, 5:30. There's a department head meeting on the 11th, 8:30. Shamha meeting. The employee breakfast is the 25th.
Employees breakfast.
That's on the
Nope, I don't get that
25th?
here.
I can't make it.
And then I got a township cleanup on the 28th. And then 26th must be TCC.
Yep. Okay. Oh, I got it down. I have it on the 19th.
19th TCC.
Commissioner Wincher?
I got to write some of this down. What time does that employee breakfast start?
It's breakfast in a bag, so they're going to be delivering it to the department. So Deb just said before 9 a.m.
All right.
So.
Do you have a start time for the breakfast in a bag for the employee appreciation breakfast? No, not exactly. I have that date in the morning.
Okay.
More details to come because I was out since you and I have to meet on it.
More details to
12th,
come.
I have a Great River Regional Library audit outtake from 2 to 4 in St. Cloud. On the 17th, I have a Great River Regional Library finance at 4:30. And let's see, we have an extension meeting on the 23rd at 5:30. I don't know where we're having that yet, do we?
I don't think they told us yet.
so-
We don't know where. Somewhere in Little Falls.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the 26th, we have Soil and Water at 9 o'clock. And the rest of the guys covered everything else.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Just for an informational thing, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 9th, there's a responsible beverage server training. On the 10th at noon, I've got a Towards Zero Death meeting. That's in public health. 13, 14. On the 12th at 6 p.m., I've got a Trails meeting at the Fort. You were going to get me, Commissioner Wincher, I think some names to find out. And if you get that, if you send that to me, I would certainly let them know.
Thank you.
On the I forgot about that until right this second.
Yeah, I did.
On the 13th at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's an armor rack meeting in Meeker County. I don't know that I'll be at it, but there is one. For the sake of argument, anybody that's interested, on the 14th, there's a food shelf benefit at the Falls Ballroom. You don't care about me going to the dentist, I don't think.
Sure, when are you going?
On the 18th. The 19th at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a Armor Owners and Operators meeting in Alexandria. On the 19th at 7:30 p.m., there's an Egg Society meeting at the Legion in Little Falls. The 21st, I'm at Herbie. Oh, you don't care about me playing at Herbie's or nothing like that. And I'll be at a radio conference on the 23rd in St. Cloud, the 24th, and the 25th. I will make my way back for board on the 24th. On the 26th, there's an Armor State Emergency Communications Board meeting in Arden Hills. And I don't think I have anything else. I've got that's a township meeting that we're going to go to instead, so that's out.
And then was there an airport? Is there an airport meeting this month?
Yes, you know what, it's not on my calendar, but there will be unless he cancels it, so. Yes, I'll write that in here.
Is anyone going to Mississippi?
That's me.
On the 20th, is that also?
Second one's here. God, you breakfast in a basket. Okay, put me down on that because yes.
Okay. And then on yours, there was safety. I found those on your.
Safety conference on the 11th.
They're on your online.
Oh, I bet you that one got canceled. Okay. And they canceled it, so when they canceled it for me, it goes away from my calendar. What day was that?
The 11th.
Thanks, Tabitha, for reminding me. I did have
yes, that's been canceled. Thank you.
Yep.
That's been canceled. So we got our schedules taken care of.
So, Mr. Chair, I have two closed session resolutions. One is relating to my annual performance review, and that is Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3. And the other one is relating to an active lawsuit we're in with Richard C. Nash, the then Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard and the Minnesota Department of Military Affairs regarding our solid waste ordinance. And so my request would be to consider both of those. We'll close, deal with both issues, and then we'll reconvene after we're done.
So we will close at...
Well, you'd want to vote on those resolutions.
Did that wrong.
Yeah.
But to vote on both,
yes.
One at a time. Or both?
Yeah. Both can be together. Just,
okay. Sorry, guys. Did
I'll
that
make
wrong.
a motion that we do both resolutions at the same time.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And now we'll close the meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.